Okay, I believe we are live. Let's do our traditional microphone check to make sure everybody's volumes are looking okay. Make sure everybody can hear us. Chat, say something if you can hear me, please. That would be great.
Cat, cat food's been put away.
Okay, good. We were worried.
Well, yeah.
Jack
My
lines.
cat's getting adjusted to the new place, so
Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Let's go to our first slide here with the shameless plug for our sponsor, and everybody can see that I am the only one brave enough to show my face today. Everyone else is too ashamed of the Cities of Sigmar to show themselves. All right, so we have a poll going in the chat. First impressions of Cities of Sigmar. If you think they're S tier, which is like an overpowered army that's a little too strong and needs to be toned down. A tier, which is like a great army, very powerful, but not necessarily overpowered. B tier is something that's just short of the A tier. Pretty good. You can reasonably go 4-1, 3-2, that sort of thing at a GT. C tier, where the army's below average. And I don't think there's any chance. This is a D tier book, so not going to bother putting that in. So let us know what you think in the poll in the chat. And yeah, let's introduce ourselves, because I'm really terrible at doing that sort of thing. So my name is Paul. I'm one of the hosts of the Stormkeep, and today, who do we have joining us?
Hey,
Hey,
I'm really happy to be here. My name is Jake. I go by Frog in some of the various AOS discords. I've been playing Cities pretty much as my sole army competitively for 2 years, 3 years. I've seen the highs, the lows, the Living City Golden Age, the Great Fall after that, where we're all forced to migrate to Hallowheart. But this new book has got me excited. So really happy to be here discussing it.
Right on. Good to have you.
hey guys, this is Morgank. Yeah, excited to get into some Azure talk.
And I'm James, the Season 3 resident kitty enthusiast.
Yes, you are pushing cats harder than anyone else that I've seen. As excited as I am for cats, I think you're just giddy about them. It's good to see. I'm glad you found a list that really speaks to you. All right, so I'm going to give a shout out to our sponsor, Kaiju Gaming Lounge. They are our official sponsor. They give us all the prizes for our painting contests, and they help us distribute our merch. So as you can see on in the photo there, we have some Stormkeep dice, which will be coming back in stock soon, if anybody's interested in getting a set. We also have them sell these 7-inch, 9-inch range markers, which come in handy. Even just today, we were using like a dozen of them on the table because we were playing a 7-inch Grand Hammer list. That was a good time. They're great for if you're playing Thunderstrike units and you want to use the Lord Imperative to drop them into play, or if you're playing Seraphon, they also have 7-inch Deep Strike units. So fantastic gaming aid, and if you want to support the channel, that's a good way to do it. So give them a shout. They do ship internationally. You just gotta message them on Discord about that kind of thing. And if you use code Stormkeep, you can get 15% off. They're local to Florida, and they do a lot of event organizing out there. And if Dan was on here today, he would have a lot more to say about them.
You got a shout out there, Jake, in the chat.
I did. Wow.
Okay, so first topic of the day, we need to go through the results of our painting contest from July when we were painting Stormdrakes. So you can see here, Dan has like a cosmic theme on his Stormdrakes, and I actually don't have any painted up myself, so I'm going to use some of his to show off because they look gorgeous. I really like the way he did that. So we had almost 30 entries for the Stormdrake painting contest, which I actually expected it to be one of our lower entry ones, just because they're such big models and they've only been out for like 2 years now. So it's actually kind of rare that people have fully painted Stormdrakes, right? With a lot of other stuff we do, it's like, yeah, show us your evocators. People probably have them from 3 or 4 years ago. But Stormdrakes are more recent. They're huge models. They're on the expensive side. So I'm glad we got as many entries as we did, because there's a lot of talented artists in our community. So there's a typo on the slide. It should say Painting Stormdrakes. We'll fix that in editing. Probably not. No, it's live. But we have selected our top 3 winners and a number of honorable mentions. And the 3 winners will be contacted, and they'll get their choice of a Kronspine, a box of Malign Sorcery, and a Lord Veritant. We picked these prizes hoping that they would be useful to people this season. How have those predictions panned out? I think endless spells are very good. That's obvious. Have you guys seen a lot of Kron Spines yet lately? Or is it still taking time?
There was one GT here recently that had a bunch of them back on the field, but in terms of like local play at like league or whatnot, nothing yet.
Hmm.
I haven't run the Lord Veritant myself in a few lists, so
He feels good. You know, like, yeah, especially if you're playing with mystical terrain and you get the +1 to chant, like it's just like an upgrade over a Lord Relictor, it feels like.
Yeah, I think it's more like that the Lord Relictor I feel feels overcosted these days. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess especially because now that we know that the Battle Mage nerf is incoming when we talk about this book.
Yes, we will have to do that funeral that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny little Battle Mage funeral. Oh, we're gonna miss him. Yeah, I'm thinking Kron Spines are still. You know, it takes a little while for people to adjust to the meta in AOS, and there's just something about a unit that literally can't be killed that is very enticing, and I think people are sleeping on Kron Spines still. They should be more popular than they ought to be, or than they are right now. Let's say.
Natalie's reporting that she saw a few at the Tacoma Open there in the chat, so
Okay.
I'm led to believe that they're alive and well. We just haven't seen them in the local yet.
Oh, the kind of popularity I'm talking about is like every other list should have one. That's how stupid these things are right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty dumb. Okay, so let's jump into the honorable mentions first. I decided to just pair them up on the screen, and let me get rid of the Discord pop out here. Bam, there we go. All right, so first up, honorable mentions, we have Corbs, who's a longtime friend of the channel, longtime watcher and supporter, and he's got this beautiful fire and ice theme going on, and it's just these like 3D printed bases are they're just so cool, right? Like I kind of wish I got them before I put all my stuff together. Especially the ice one. Like I've seen the fire ones around. There's a lot of them, but the ice one, that's a new one for me. I hadn't seen that before, and great job painting it too.
Yeah, I got to see these in person this week. They were fabulous.
Oh yeah, that's right.
he's
You're playing at the X Planet League.
No, I was playing a Torchlight game at X Planet.
Torchlight.
X
Yeah, these
Planet
look
is
really phenomenal. I like the custom helmets and the basing.
Yeah, Lord
Custom bases for
Harambe
Stormgate Guard. Yeah.
did a fantastic job with these. The small detail that I really like on this is the prosecutor shields. For some reason, I just really like the idea of bringing old cast bits onto the new Thunderstrike models. I think that looks really, really sharp. And the new shoulder pads too. If you look, he's not using the regular shoulder pads on that. It's just like a ton of great kit bashing all over. So really fantastic work.
Yeah.
That bell, what is that? Is that's from a Warcry set? I think.
Yeah, I think it is from a Warcry, or it might be that
it
new Sigmar terrain. Yeah, it's like Warcry set, and then that he's got the flock of birds, which might be from like the OBR banner. I think.
Is that the?
I think it's the endless spell for beasts.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think it's the beast and the spell.
Oh, okay. The flock of doom one. Oh yeah, okay. Cool.
You just never see it on the table, so yeah.
Yeah, and then there's that obviously that great 3D print
Mhm.
for in Deadly Print Studios. We've seen that a few times.
Oh, it's gonna pop up at least once more today in this live stream. It looks great. So fantastic work, gentlemen. Oop, getting ahead of myself. All right, next up, more honorable mentions here. We have two more. One from, I think that's it, should say Jershaw, not Jusha. Sorry about that typo. And then Coraxis, who is another regular on our painting contest. So Jershaw has done a fantastic job with this color scheme. All the scales are highlighted very well. It's just a great, clean thing. And he told me not to bully him about the bases, but I feel like I need to. I need to bully you about the bases because there's so much more you can do with that much space. I know it ties into the rest of your army, but yeah, I don't think that's a good enough reason. I think you can do better. And then Coraxis.
Yeah, I mean it's got a lot of cool like depths to the model that I really like a lot of like really high contrast, just really good into the recessed fading and good with the wings. It's a good dragon.
I've already put so many typos into these slides. Oh boy, this is what happens when we play games until like 6 o'clock.
Oh.
All right.
Oh boy.
Yep. Coraxis has this great, highly saturated style. Very, very high contrast style. You can see the greens, the reds, the blues. They're all just popping, and it works really well off the chrome red armor that he paints, and it's just a great style. All the scales are highlighted very well. You can see the very fine edge highlighting and all the what would you call those? Like the pale brown scales along the arms, forearm scales, something like that. Looks really, really good. Yeah. It was a little bit of a spoiler. Sorry about that, guys. I scrolled too fast. All right, going on to third place. We have like YMH. I don't think that's a word, right? It's not like imh or anything. It's YMH. With this beautiful Bretonnian almost style Stormdrake guard. The lances are painted with ribbons, and all the little ribbons are highlighted with all the edges. He's shaved off all the emblems on the shields and then hand painted on these beautiful crests with fleur-de-lis and all this stuff. It's just beautiful. I wish I could.
I love it.
Yeah, like this.
So good.
Yeah, this is why I built mine with lances, because the lances just look so much cooler than the swords, and this paint job justifies my decision. Even if mine doesn't look this good, I will always remember this one. It's also got ruined Azure bases instead of flight stands. I'm gonna guess that these are pinned in. Maybe YMH, if you're watching this, if you could let us know either here or somewhere later if you pin these in or if these are just super glued on top. Because I'm looking at that and I'm like terrified of transporting these. I feel like they're just gonna snap off so easily. So
I feel like they're pinned. They would have to be.
They must be, right?
Yeah, unless you were like holding these for hours on end and epoxy glue overnighting or something.
Yeah, that'd be too much. But no, in addition to the great concept, probably used a Dremel to shave down the Sigmar emblems. Great concept, great execution, beautiful color schemes, like 4 distinct color schemes on the Drakes, all tied together by the common shared armor elements, and just fantastic. Really, really great work. So congratulations on third place. It's well deserved. Looking at second place, again, another typo. Oh boy, I'm gonna get it for this one. It says Painting Stormdrakes. Oh boy, okay. So second place goes to Edom H22 with this fantastic concept of painting lightning inside the wings of these Stormdrakes and making it look like a night sky that's being illuminated with lightning. And I think that is just so fitting for Stormcast that it just shot right up in my rankings for how we voted on these. In addition, there's a lot of interesting base work being done here. You can see some pillars, you can see rocks, you can see green glowing crystals. The models themselves are also technically well painted, so it's not just a great concept. It's also executed very well, especially the spear tips. You can see there's like a green glow on them. This is just awesome. If you zoom in close enough, you can actually see on the Stormcast, the tower shields, the one that's blue there, it's actually got like a lightning bolt going down the middle of it. So it's like illuminated throughout the middle. I wish I got a closer picture of that. But if you guys go into our Discord server and look in the Painting Stormdrakes channel, there's an imager album with all of these pinned in there. So it's very easy to go through and find these entries. And it's just beautiful. There's so many great entries. We really couldn't. We could have spent a whole live stream just doing this, right? We could have just talked about the results of the painting contest.
Yeah,
it's certainly given me some inspiration because I'm just about to start painting my Stormdrakes, and I think I might steal this concept with the lightning through the wings. It looks so distinct. It's so cool. All right, and our first place is going to Lightforge with this spectacular paint job and also this is a level beyond what I can do, is putting LEDs into the bases. These do illuminate. You can see in the picture on the right that there's LEDs built in here, and these will light up, which that's the coolest thing ever. In addition to that, the beautiful base work, the beautiful paint jobs, the very smooth non-metallic metal shading, the tiny patterning on the wings everywhere. Beautiful work. Really, really good job.
This looks like a really realistic dragon. Like in terms of like scales, like the shading on the wings, the patterns. Like
Yeah,
this is about as close to a real lizard as you can get, in my opinion. So yeah,
yeah, and the flames
excellent.
really adds a sense of realism too. Like it's
Mhm.
all coherent together thematically. It's a beautiful job.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really really impressive.
and that fire looks hot. Like it looks like it's
Yeah.
hot.
Looks hot, right? Yeah.
Looks like there's heat emanating from this model, which looks very cool. So
Yeah, really,
very
really
well
good.
deserved first place, Lightforge. I think this might be Lightforge's first entry into one of our painting contests. Like maybe I'm mistaken about that, but I hope
Yeah, I
there's
think
more.
so. I don't think I haven't seen that name before, but I'm hoping to see more in the future for sure.
Yeah, these are fantastic. I also just want to pick his brain about how he did the basing on the grass there. That's the kind of thing I'm looking to do with my Seraphon. So definitely going to be reaching out to you. Congratulations on first place, and congratulations to everyone who entered. Honestly, like there were so many great entries. I hope what people get out of these contests isn't just, you know, here's the picks that Stormkeep guys like, because we just pick for whatever we like for whatever reason. But the reason we do these contests is to just get everybody involved with discussing the hobby aspect side of things. You know, we don't want to be just the match play guys. Like we also paint models. We like talking about painting models, and it just brings the whole community together. And we have a lot of great, talented people, just passionate, inspiring people. I love this pattern. I'm definitely doing this on the top side of the wings, and I think I'm going to do the lightning bolt thing on the bottom side. Just combine these two ideas and not do as good of a job as either of these great painters. So, congratulations, guys. Well deserved. Now, let us move on to the main topic of this evening. We are talking about Battletome Cities of Sigmar. Because if you have paid attention, very close attention, probably one of the reasons you're watching our live stream right now, if you're paying that close attention, the entire Battletome has been leaked online. And everything. We know all the models that are coming, all the Warscrolls, all the enhancements, all the storm hosts, and we are going to talk about it because we've had a whole weekend now of thinking about it. Even though I was demolishing my kitchen this weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about the Battletome. It's just... it's
exciting. I mean,
yeah.
you know, human faction for, you know, we've seen Slaves to Darkness, we've seen Stormcast, we've seen all these like human factions that are like chaos aligned or some weird aligned, and we finally get to see some good old regular guys for once. And this is a complete redesign of Cities of Sigmar. This is not tied at all to the Empire imagery. They have all new aesthetics, a whole new army design. It is not tied to the ways of old. In fact, a lot of things have been cut. So let's go through the major changes, shall we? Paul?
Yeah. So the major things that stood out to me, and feel free to add your own to this, by the way, guys. But I noticed that a lot of the Warscrolls were removed. Obviously, we knew that a lot of stuff was getting cut. But also, there's been significant changes in how a lot of units function. Right, a lot of units have higher damage output. A lot of the new stuff is really... it's just very different. I guess that's the first point there. Some enhancements have just been straight up removed. Right, there's no more mount traits available. There's no more Stormcast coalition units. I think that's a big thing that we in particular are disappointed about because we love playing Stormcast units, but the Stormcast Allegiance leaves a lot to be desired, and they were very, very strong in Cities book, in the Cities 2.0 book. So we were kind of hoping, to get a new way to play Stormcast with this book, and it seems like that's just not going to be the case. Jake, did you often use Stormcast units? I know you said Living City, you were a big player on that before you took refuge in Hallowheart. Were you doing the Stormdrake Fulminator thing in Living City?
So yeah. Like, listen, let's see. I'm shameless. No illusions about that. I had almost as much Stormcast as probably I had Cities. So this book represents pretty much an entire. I have to look at my whole collection again and say, okay, this is out. I've got 3K dead points of Stormcast, and now I have to get city stuff. But I'm not really mad about it at all. In fact, it's exciting. Like, despite the great financial cost that I'm about to endure, the great financial beatdown, I'm very enthused about the book. I think it was it was a necessary change for the army's Warscrolls to stand on its own, rather than just be like a bunch of powerful allegiance abilities that are better used by units that you're importing. And if I guess if I wanted to kind of retain the coalition of old, I can always play Stormkeep, the last bastion of what cities used to be.
Such as it is.
I mean, if you okay, so like let's be fair, right? So, Cities of Sigmar is what Slaves of Darkness is to the various Chaos factions. Slaves of Darkness itself does not have any coalition rules. It has
True.
great allies that you can bring in from pretty much all the 4 Chaos factions, but it has no coalition rules. All the other 4 Chaos factions have coalition rules, but they don't do anything to like the units.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I think the chat, a few people in the chat have mentioned this now. It's a good balancing move long term because Stormcast don't have to be balanced with the idea that they could be put in cities instead.
Yeah.
As much as I like that idea, it's kind of weird that Slaves to Darkness can do that with every Chaos army pretty much. Like the amount of coalition and souping that happens in Chaos armies, like they're okay with it there, but they're not okay with it in Order, I guess.
So
It's
I mean,
weird.
so okay, I mean, it's not as useful. Like a lot of the buffs in a lot of the factions don't apply. Some are really egregious. For instance, Tzeentch's 5-up ward or like Shield of Fate or whatever can be given to like your allied chaos units, sorry, coalition chaos units. And the most egregious example probably is Bellicor, right? Bellicor is just like it's a Slaves of Darkness unit. You just like put it into literally any chaos faction you want, and it's you go from there. Looking at the Cities of Sigmar book, I don't think there's an obvious unit like that we would consider putting in.
Yeah, even if the same coalition thing existed in Order, people probably wouldn't use it, right? Because I'm going through this book, and obviously I'm looking at it as a Stormcast player primarily, and I'm thinking, what do I want to bring from this book as an ally? And it's a very short list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is sad. Hopefully long term it's for the best. I think for Cities players it's definitely for the best, right? Like if you like to play Cities of Sigmar, you shouldn't have to bring Coalition Stormcast, right? Because at that point it's just an extension of the Stormcast army. It's not really, yeah. So long term it's probably for the best. Let's see other major changes. The enhancements and subfactions, all that stuff has been standardized, right? So like. 3rd edition has a very particular way of doing subfactions and enhancements, and it is to reduce them and make most of them terrible, give you like 1 or 2 good choices, and not make it worth getting anything else. That's pretty much been standard across the board in 3rd edition. Almost every army in the game is now like that, which is unfortunate. I kind of wish everything was stronger and all this bonus stuff was more powerful, because it's boring to have like 3 choices of subfactions instead of maybe 8 or 11. Let's say, like, why can't all 11 be good, right? Why is it like 3 of them that are decent? It's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect as many subfactions as we've seen. I didn't expect the splitting of some subfactions. Like we've seen Hammerhall split into 2, as we'll talk about later. But yeah, but the thing is, it was inevitabilities. The city subfactions were way too good last book. I would say, like, pound for pound, they were some of the best subfaction rules you could find, given how many cities they were covering. And no matter what you took in them, Caradron, Sylvaneth, Stormcast, when those are affected by rules, they were often better units than they were in their own books. So I'm glad that it might be a little bit more boring, but it allows the city units themselves to shine with it by their own interaction, as opposed to the subfaction doing the heavy lifting for them.
Yeah,
well said. I agree with that.
The problem is if you have a choice of playing a fun and interesting game or a balanced game, and let's say for the sake of discussion they are mutually exclusive, because let's say you're not, it's too difficult to do both, and you have timelines, and I'm trying to be very generous here. So if you have a choice, which one would you as a player rather have? A fun and interesting game or a well-balanced game? I think
Also fun and interesting, but like I don't necessarily think the problem is the more choices you introduce, the harder it becomes to make it both fun and interesting and balanced, because that's ideally what they're aiming for, right? And like I'm not saying like designing that many subfactions in a balanced way that is interesting and fun is hard. but it's harder than it looks. And when I look at the city's rules, I think some of them are pretty fun or interesting at least.
I think it's a matter of time. If you had unlimited time, you could make
Yes.
the best book ever.
Yes.
But like, if you only have 6 weeks to write the first draft, 2 weeks to, I'm just making stuff up. I don't know. But let's say you get, 2 weeks of feedback, 2 weeks to edit, one more round of feedback and testing, and then you got to ship it. It's like, there's only so much you could do.
There's also units like that are straight up missing from this book. This feels like a okay, we'll talk about it. Let's just go on with the thing, and we'll talk about these points as we cover it.
Yeah. All right. So there's 11 different subfactions, which is the most that we have of any army in the game, unless you count coalition, which no, we're not going to count that. But for subfaction purposes, there's 11, which is huge. So in theory, that should give this book a lot of variety and a lot of cool things to do. But a big thing here is that the book is more racially segregated than it was, or not racially, but keyword segregated than it was before. And it goes down racial keywords, right? So it's, instead of being like Darkling Covens and Order Serpentis and Ironworld Arsenal and what were the other ones that were in the previous book? You know what I'm saying?
Dispossessed or something.
Yeah. Collegiate Arcane. Now it's just human, elf, dwarf. And there is a little bit more stuff with Darkling Covens versus Order Serpentis and Scourge Privateers. It's almost, you bring this hero, you bring this unit that combos with the hero. It's that simple. But it basically falls into those 3 categories: human, elf, and dwarven. And at first I was really bummed about this, because it seems like if you want to play a human list, you pretty much only use humans. The opportunity cost of teching in some other pieces is just too high. But if you're not playing human, if you're playing like primarily elf or dwarven, then splashing those 2 together actually seems decent, and bringing in human on the side feels good. So to me, it feels like it's either you're playing humans or you're playing a mix. I think a pure elf build could work too.
I think pure elf could work. I think pure elf could work. I think the best way to go, because they essentially took the high elf portion of the book that used to be Cities of Sigmar, and they gave those things to the dark elves. So the dark elf units were pretty lackluster. They just weren't good. Maybe the sorcerer saw some play, but they essentially took the Phoenix Temple and they made dark elves they sort of inherited the powers from the Phoenix Temple. And then you look at there are spiritual successors here, like great swords going away and executioners becoming the new great swords. I think a Dwarden and elf force could be pretty formidable. But if you're playing humans, they just have so much in the book compared to the other 2 that if you can't really bring a mix, because humans quite very much demand a very significant investment in terms of points, in my opinion, in this book, to be souping in with elves or dwarves. But the other ones don't. They have pretty simple 1-to-1 based interactions. 1 + 1 = 2. So that's more possible in that side of the book.
Yeah. I've looked at like bringing a human shooting corps with like some fusiliers and cannons, and then trying to splash in like a sorceress and executioners, or a sorceress and blackguard for screens. And it just never feels good enough, because you could just bring more human units, which would benefit from the Warforger and the Pontifex and all this stuff. So it just, I don't know. But we'll get there. But it is definitely a lot more segregated in terms of racial keywords. Okay, so let's talk about orders. They are a new gameplay system introduced in this book and only used by this book. And they are specifically not command abilities, which feels weird to me. I kind of want to linger on this point for a second here, because I feel like they probably should just be command abilities. We have this 3rd edition, which is all about command abilities, how you generate command points, how you issue commands, how you receive commands, all this stuff. They spend a lot of time figuring all this out. And then they just stack this system on top of it, which kind of feels like a worse version of commands. Right? They're less reactive. They have more counterplay. They're secret, which is kind of fun, but if your opponent can reasonably guess which ones you're doing, because it probably is obvious which one you're trying to do, and they snipe out the hero, you lose it. So it's like, did we need a second command point system except worse? Is that was this necessary?
Frog, I don't want to know what you think about this before I say
I think
was that a bad take? I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very interesting. If I'm looking at it from an optimist point of view, if I want to be positive, I would say this is an interesting system for skill expression, because obviously the bane of it is you're planning out all you have to issue all your orders at the start of the battle round. So there's definitely, you have to have some sort of prophetic view of what's going to happen. You might get that wrong, you might get that right. The payoff when you get it right can be very high when you can engineer the situation where you get the countercharge and the fight first. And then, of course, a couple of the orders are just strong on the nose. Return fire is a very, very powerful order. Probably is what enables the Fusilier Castle build to function as it does. And Advance in Formation is also very strong. But to get the most out of them, the vulnerability is you have to correctly predict. And as good and smart as you might be, at some points you're just going to have to take reasonable guesses, and you'll get them wrong. But I think it's a fun system. It's fun to spring trap cards on people.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely fun.
From player experience. But I'll have to get some more games. I've been testing already, but I'll have to get some more games in to really think about how I feel.
So to clarify, when I say it's worse than commands, what I mean is if each of these was not an order issued at the start of the round, but if it was a command that you issue whenever a condition's met, so if you could just do Advance in Formation anytime, or if you could just do Return Fire anytime without having to prepare it ahead of time, it would be objectively stronger, right? But maybe their argument there could be, well, the reason they're so strong right now is because there's that element where they can fail and be played around. And if they were just commands, then they would have to be weaker.
So
maybe?
yeah, so I'll say this. So this is, for those of you who play 40k, this is ported straight from 40k. Imperial Guard has a bunch of things called orders that the heroes give out. Things like move, or like fire or something like that. Like it's like they've got a bunch of stuff around shooting and movement. I think it's meant to sort of be because there's a lot of things in the game that turn off command abilities, and the idea is that these are independent troops that act on the orders of their superiors, in addition to whatever commands they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything they do is as an ordered formation. Every little trick that they have is a direct order, and those orders are obeyed no matter what. Like you cannot just like scare them to not obeying it. If a monster comes and roars you, sure, you're not all out attacking or all out defensing. That's sort of the thing like your unit is doing on its own for its survival. But when your commander orders you to do something, you do it no matter how scared you are.
Okay.
That's sort of like the theme of like this army, like how these like free guilders like go out into the wilds and how they like react to threats. So I think flavor wise it's fine. I think gameplay wise, I don't think it's worse. I think it's like if you could think about like the insane things in the game that turn off command abilities right now. If you could just turn off things that this army does, this army would just be a bunch of like 5-up save little humans that can't do anything but shoot every once in a while, and they would just die. But orders makes them more threatening because you're like, oh, you turned off my command abilities. I do not care. Here's 40 shots in your shooting phase that I can still do. It makes the heroes valuable targets. I agree. But then again, that's like the whole it's going with the theme of the army that these are just regimented free guilders who have to listen to their commander's orders.
Yeah.
They have very little self cohesion, unlike the armies of other units. You know,
it makes the heroes feel like little commanders on the battlefield, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that feels pretty good. It does open up a big weakness with the army, though, with the lack of bodyguard units, aside from, what's the one bodyguard? Longbeards, I think, for Dwarven heroes. One of those dwarf units, it can be a bodyguard. But the rest, you just magic them down or AoE them down. Like, they just die pretty quickly. They're 5 wounds for the most part. But okay, so let's talk about, let's go through the orders, just so we have some context about what we're talking about. So Cities of Sigmar, the keyword here means any unit in the army can use these orders. And I guess I should explain how orders are actually assigned. At the top of the round, like you said, Jake, not at the start of each turn. So it's not like hero phase. You pick your battle tactic. No. This is start of the round after the priority roll. So presumably you know who's going first and who's going second. You issue all of your orders out. Now each hero gets an order, and it's secret, right? Your opponent doesn't know which one it is. And then when a specific condition is met, you can reveal the order and do its effect. So at the start of the round, you just lay out all your tokens. If you have 5 heroes, you get 5 orders, and you can kind of predict reasonably which ones they're going to be if you're familiar with the book. And there is a max of 3, so you can't just give countercharge to every single hero. It has to be max 3, so there's a little bit of bookkeeping required there. My question is, how do you do this if you don't have tokens? it gets a lot harder, right? Do they sell the tokens with the Battletome?
Yeah, it's a part of the cards.
Okay, but that's the army box, right? What happens if you
Well,
don't
yeah.
buy the army box?
Well, so they had, if I recall correctly, Nighthaunt has a lot of these tokens because they need them for their charge, the Wave of Terror crap
Mhm.
that they do. That was not part of their Warscroll cards. That was part of their tome. It was
Okay, with
attached
the
to their
book.
tome.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
So they could do something similar because it is such an integral part of the book that you absolutely need to have those.
Right. Okay. So
I've
Cities.
seen some Cities players like making custom Yu-Gi-Oh cards and printing them out
I like
and
that.
just putting them face
Yeah.
down, setting the traps.
You can just
Yeah, it's
write
like
trap card on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Cities of Sigmar. So any hero can receive this order, and any unit can get this order. These are advance in formation, which gives you plus 3-inch move. All of these, I believe, require being within 3 inches of a hero when the condition is met.
Yes.
Not wholly
Not-
within
not
3,
wholly,
just within.
yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now advanced information gives you plus 3 move, but for units that have fortified positions, it allows you to set up a fortified position even though you moved. And we'll talk more about that specific mechanic later. But I gotta say, this one feels like this was designed so that they could make those fortified position units worse as allies. Because
Yes.
if you don't have this allegiance, if you don't have advanced in formation, those units are like not worth using outside of this army, I think.
Yes, because
Yeah.
the minute you move in your movement phase or set up, because they've started doing this now. Now they've started including exceptions for setup. Previously, it was used to just be moves, so you could
Mhm.
get some teleporter to move them around. But now, yes, it is specifically there, so these units are only good in their book and not as allies.
Complete 180 from the previous design, which was bring as many order units as you could and bring cities in every army. Now it's like, nah, we're good. Maybe they're just going to get rid of allies in the future, like seems to be the way we're trending.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the concept of allies like Stormcast and regular humans fighting together. You constantly see it in the lore, so I hope it stays because I think it's fun and interesting. But I it shouldn't be overpowering. Like,
Yeah.
that's my only thing.
So advance in formation. If you're not playing the human stuff, because if you're playing the human stuff, you lay out like probably at least 2 of these per turn, right? Because you can't truly predict which units need to move, and maybe multiple units want to use it, and maybe one of your hero gets sniped. So you probably lay this out at least 1 per turn, usually 2 per turn, I would say, or round.
Mhm.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Without playing the
agree.
game.
I think a lot of this army is not a super fast army, so this is required.
Mhm.
This is what gets your 6-inch and 4-inch melee units to have reasonable threat ranges. It's a very powerful order because it's not one unit.
It's all units within 3 inches.
All units.
Yeah.
So this is widely the most fundamental order to the army.
It's really fundamental to all the shooting units that have
Correct.
the Castalites.
Except Iron Drakes, and this is the stake that was driven through Iron Drake's heart, because this does not allow the Iron Drakes to count as not having moved.
Yeah, you know that
Well, yeah,
thing.
because they're not Castalite.
Correct.
You know
And
that
so
thing
they
Iron
they
Drakes
are
have been
in the
doing?
closet.
Iron Drakes have had this mechanic forever. Now the rest of the book has it, and they have ways to counter it, and Iron Drakes are just like, hey, how about us? Oh, okay.
They're like, yeah, you know that Soul Screen Bridge thing y'all used to do? Yeah, that doesn't work anymore.
That's gone.
Yeah.
You ain't doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like the Soul Screen Bridge change was put in not because of Caradron, but because of cities.
Yes, that was that 30 Iron Drake list for the longest time created a lot of headaches.
Mm-hmm.
The Hallowheart Iron Drakes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's advanced information. Necessary if you're playing humans, still really good otherwise. And there's no opportunity cost in any of these. You can just pick whichever one you want anytime you want, as long as you have the right keyword hero. Countercharge. I think this is probably the thing that takes cities from being an okay army into a good army, right? It's
If they
countercharge
didn't have this,
and,
I would say they were like B tier.
yeah,
Or like
countercharge
lower A.
and return fire, but that's only for human builds. So just in general, countercharge is really, really, really good. The ability to charge in the opponent's turn is one of the stronger abilities in the game, along with like retreat and charge, 6-inch pylons, all this stuff that your opponent can play around. Now they can't play around, right? So like you can't just ignore an enemy unit, because if you don't charge it, it's just going to charge you, right? So countercharge is awesome. It's It sucks that it's at the start of the round and it's not reactive, right? But I guess what you would do with this is something like have a hero with multiple units that might want to countercharge. I guess. And can you re-roll a charge with a command if you do a countercharge like this? Because this happens at the end of the charge phase, right? So it's still in the charge phase. So
Yeah. You can reroll the charge, and it's not a command ability, so yeah, you could.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. Because I tried doing this with Croxagors and Seraphon, using the once per game charge thing in the enemy turn, and it's not actually in the charge phase. It's in the combat phase, so you can't use the command to reroll charges.
Yep.
Yeah, that sucked. I failed that charge. Yeah, strong order. I think you're going to see it a lot. Okay, if you're playing humans units specifically, you get access to probably the 3 best ones aside from advance and formation and countercharge. But return fire is ridiculously good, given the way So what happens is, if any unit in your army is shot, if that unit is within 3 inches of a hero with the order, that hero can pick another human unit and it can shoot immediately. So your screen gets shot. 30 Fusiliers shoot you immediately. Your hero gets shot and survives. 30 Fusiliers shoot you immediately. The Fusiliers get shot. They shoot you back immediately. And they're going to be fortified with +1 to save and a 5-up ward. So there'll be a 3-up ethereal with a 5-up ward. And then they revive 3d3.
Yep. And this stacks. So if they have 2 heroes with this order, because they can have the same order up to 3 times on 3 different heroes, all 3 they can have each unit shoot twice.
Mm-hmm. So Fusiliers are just immune to shooting until all heroes are dead. Because it's so stupid.
Yeah, I don't know what the classic Slun. This is like, they're like, man, we really don't want Slanesh Bliss Barbalist to do anything anymore. Yeah. We're gonna punish them for their sins.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, because their shooting isn't immediate. They shoot back with 1 unit, you can immediately just, I'm gonna kill that unit. Then they shoot back with the next unit, okay, I'm gonna kill that unit now.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Yeah,
it's so good. Return fire is exceptional, and probably
you know what this is really good against?
Everyone?
All these armies that rely on chip shooting from like some weird melee monster to clear out a screen. You try to clear out this screen with that weird like Iron Jaws puke or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, here, have 40 shots on your mock rifle.
Devin in chat saying you can't double return fire. Are we mistaken about that?
Can you not?
Why not? Let's say you have 2 different heroes with return fire, and they could both pass it on to that unit, couldn't they?
It's because there's a rider in the orders rule that says the friendly unit cannot be affected by the same order more than once in the same phase.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
okay, cool. Okay, that's cool. I mean, if you still have 2 units of Fusiliers, they could return.
Or like a cannon or something.
Yeah.
Steam tank. But the fact that you can just put out multiple return fires and have multiple units shoot is still good.
Yeah. Return fire is just it's a great order regardless. Like auto phase actions is always good.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right, so let's look at the next one here. Suppressing fire. I don't know how important it is to have an enemy strike last, because this only happens in your shooting phase, so it's not like you can unleash hell with a suppressing fire and then give them a strike last. So the reason to do this really is so you can score the battle tactic, which requires using it. Right? Because like, how often are you going to be multi-charging and giving strike last and on your turn, and how often does that matter?
It could matter if you're using something like, I mean, this really goes on builds, but like there's some things that might not immediately die to like a unit of Cavaliers, which is the most common thing that you're going to be charging with.
So like 2 units of Cavaliers?
Yeah, you could charge in 2 units, have 10 Cavaliers fight at once. I think that's a lot better than having 1 Cavalier unit just die. Or you could, charge in with like, if you were running like, we don't recommend it, we'll talk about it later, but like Talia Vedra and someone else, for instance.
Yeah. I think the problem with suppressing fire is it's competing for token slot with return fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And if you're playing the 1-drop Fusilier Castle build, there's no way. Unless it's a matchup with 0 shooting, there's no way suppressing fire is ever going to outvalue return fire.
Yeah, I wish suppressing fire just said you can't issue commands or something.
Yeah, that'd be way better. I'm going to credit
like it was a ranged roar or some kind.
Yeah, my man Devin in the chat. With this, putting me on to this, is that if you do, the most standard way to run Fusiliers is you'll have a unit of 30 or a unit of 20, right? I think it'll be comparatively rare to have 10s. So if you want to do suppressing fire, well, the unit of 30 is probably going to kill whatever it shot at.
Mhm.
Yep.
And as far as I know, you won't be able to make the suppressing fire roll if the unit's dead, so you won't get the battle tactic.
Yep. And if you do it with only 10, you might not even kill enough models
Kill
to trigger.
anyone,
So I guess we should explain the rule behind it. So suppressing fire, after you shoot the unit, you make a bravery check. You make a battle shock test basically off two dice. It's similar to a battle shock test.
It's 2d6, and then
two-
you just add the number of models slain or something.
Yeah, and if you beat their bravery, they are suppressed, and
Yeah.
then they get strike last until the end of the turn. And yeah, so I mean, I guess
I don't know how useful end of turn is. I guess if it was like, if you're suppressed and you fight last until like in your next turn, whenever that is, that would be way more useful. Not until your next hero phase, because that'd be stupid. That means they would be potentially striking last for two consecutive turns. But like, I suppressing fire you, you're striking last until whenever I go, whatever your next turn is, no matter what. So that unit will not be yet useful next turn. Because if I can't kill it, I'll make sure it's not that effective. At least.
and you can't split your shots with it either, right?
Nope.
You have to focus fire with it. So yeah, it's a weird one. I think it's one of the reasons you'd run 20 Fusiliers instead of 30, just so you actually don't overkill something and score the battle tactic. But 30 really does seem like the way to go, given how defenses stack on them.
I think 220. I think 220 is. I don't think I'd ever go 30.
Well,
30 blocks are just so unwieldy. It's just.
I thought
crazy
so
getting
too,
the
but
range
then
on this.
the Master of Ballistics, that command trait, which would probably make you want to run 2x20 with Greywater. That's only when the general issues all-out attack. So the general still can't issue it twice. So you only get +1 to wound on one unit max.
Yeah.
It's
That reduced the value of Greywater for us collectively once we all figured
tremendously. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could still go like steam tanks or cannons along with a big block of 30 Fusiliers. But
I think it's actually for those builds. If you're doing one of those stank builds, that's what Greywater is for.
Yeah, which thematically that makes sense, right?
Makes
That's what Greywater is, right?
For me, yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, engage the foe. This is also a really, really good order. +1 attack on the charge, basically, with a human unit. So Cavaliers hit like Fulminators all of a sudden. Really, really, really strong. Yeah, it's almost like you're being rewarded for picking human. Cavaliers are already good enough, and then you make them even better.
I mean, it's really better with everything, because the Warforger has this one particular ability of making everything Lumineth.
Yeah.
So
better Lumineth.
So once you're giving that out in an aura, everything benefits from +1 attack. Really.
You all of a sudden turn into Slanesh with 24 depravity.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But with 3-up saves.
Yep. And 5-up wards.
Yeah. All right. If you're playing Dwarden, you can do 2 different orders. One of them is to form a shield wall in the enemy combat phase. The unit gains strike last, but you get a 5-up ward. And that's pretty cool, especially because Iron Breakers get +1, so they can make it a 4-up ward. So you can have a super tanky anvil, effectively, 60 effective health on a 3-up save or 4-up save. I think 3-up save.
They're 3-up, yep.
They're pretty cheap. Yeah, 3-up save.
Crazy anvil.
For the shields.
How useful is that anvil, though? I guess we'll talk about it when we talk about Iron Breakers. And then Grim Last Stand. I actually forget what this one does. Is this like you do mortal wounds on death or something?
It's like you get to make murder rolls.
Yeah.
Murder
rolls.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I was right. That's okay. Just another thing that craps on Blaze of Glory. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, at this point we're used to it. It's fine.
At this point,
we're just waiting for next year.
We're just looking for how does the book make Blaze of Glory look worse? New book comes out. Let's find the Blaze of Glory.
Yep.
Okay, elves have really exciting ones. The first one is Strike Them Down, where you charge and you get strike first, which is really, really good and a lot easier to use than Suppressing Fire, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's basically a better Suppressing Fire in a way, because you just strike first with something and fight normally.
I think this is what makes the elf spam builds good. Like, all elf builds could be good because you can fight with 2 units at the same time, like your Lumineth. Yep. What a weird concept.
I mean, plus, like, they have the stupid that spell that just like
Infinity Rend. Yeah.
Yeah, I have Rend 10.
Yep.
Whatever.
Elves have multiple units that are actually dangerous in melee and charging, especially with Tenebrable Blades, and so something that just makes them good at charging and gives you 2 combat activations in a row has to be good. It's just a straightforward thing, straightforward concept.
Yep. It also gets around enemy strike first, which is a really nice tool to have available all the time. If they have like a strike first Dracolines or something, you can just get around it with this. You fight them first anyway because it's your turn. You pick a fight
The
first.
careful thing to note here is that this is how like they will need to have these on units. They will need to charge in heroes with the units because it has to be within 3. So you have to either do some really weird chaining of units, you know, to receive the order. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. And of course, there is the dream combo of counter charge, because this just says in the charge phase, not in your charge phase. So you could, in theory, counter charge with a unit, right, and then strike them down. Or no, because a unit can only get one order per phase, right?
Nope, it does stack. They just can't receive the same order.
Can't receive the same one. Okay, so you can have different orders. Okay, yeah. So that combo does work. Yeah. Counter charge in the enemy turn, and then strike first with something like even just 10 executioners is brutal, right? Like with the spell on them, or corsairs, or Drakespawn Knights, or something crazy amount of damage that it's just so much setup. I think once it's going to catch people off guard, but once you see it a couple times, you'll know the exact.
You'll see it coming from a mile away. When you see an elf hero next to an elf unit, you'll be like, okay, this is the order you have. I know what I have to kill.
Yeah. Or I need to charge you. I need to make sure I get this unit in combat so it can't counter charge. And therefore, it can't activate strike them down. Yeah. All right. The other one is disengage, which allows an elf unit to retreat at the end of the combat phase. Now, I will clarify that in order to retreat, you need to have an enemy within 3 inches. So you can't just do this as if you had a normal move at the end of the combat phase. This is only if you're stuck in combat. So this one seems good on like a second order you would issue to make sure that none of your units get stuck in a bad combat, like Drakespawn Knights, right? To make sure they don't get stuck in combat and they can charge again freely. In the enemy turn, you just dip out, and then on your turn, you charge them back in to get the charge bonuses. Is there any other tech that I'm missing with this one?
I mean, it's just getting out of tar pits, basically.
That's depending on the wording, can retreat might force you to be able to get away from units that prevent retreating. I'm not 100% sure. I know for Furies it does work, but I'm not sure how the Furies are worded. If this could force you out of the Kronspine's range, or like host 2+ Citizen Siege horrors, decent tech there. If it works, I'd have to double check the wording.
It's interesting. The elf stuff certainly is a lot more exciting than the dwarf stuff, which is just dying and taking damage.
Yeah. Dying and not dying.
Yeah, don't die and also die, please. Yeah, it's a little bit different. Okay.
I mean, dwarves just have like their melee. I think hits slightly harder than the elves, but obviously elves have the spell, which
Rend Infinity. Yeah,
they have Rend Infinity, and the best the dwarves can get is Rend 3/2 damage. So
and in a world where normally them wounding on 4s would be a big problem, but we live in Hoarfrost season, so not as big of a problem as it could be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, their casting isn't very good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into looking at the Warscrolls. I'll just turn this on. Bam. All right, we are starting with the Subfactions. And I can zoom in here for everybody. There we go. First up, Hammerhall Aksha. So when heroes are being given orders, you can pick one hero and it can get 2 orders. That, at first, doesn't seem as good as it is. But as you play, I think what's going to happen is it's going to be very obvious to opponents which orders you are applying to which units based off your positioning and things of that nature. And being able to pick a second order and apply it to that hero is very, very good. Now, can you apply the same order to the same hero twice? So, for example, you could countercharge 2 different units if given the opportunity.
Good question.
I don't think there's anything that prevents that, right?
I think the only thing that stopped is like you can't have the same order more than 3 times.
Right.
Issued more than 3 times.
Yeah, that works.
But one hero could give suppressing or return fire to 2 different units.
Yeah.
So one unit shoots, and then this one hero activates return fire twice.
Yeah, or like the best combo in my opinion is the same hero can issue out you can move and fortify and then return fire.
Yeah, the 2 best ones if you're playing a human castle build, right? So just efficient. So I like this subfaction. I think it's one of the better ones. Definitely in the top 5. I don't know what the ordering of any of these are, but this one definitely seems like one of the better ones to me.
I would agree with that, especially in talking about the one-drop context, where you will, by necessity, be limited to 3 orders max under normal circumstances, unless you take a Smash Griffin.
Oh, it says they must be different orders, Paul.
Oh, it does? Must
it
be different.
does.
Oh, okay. There it is. Yeah. How did I miss
Okay.
that?
Yeah. Either way, though, this is good for solving that one-drop order bottleneck, where you'd otherwise be limited to 3 orders, and orders are powerful. So I do agree. This is definitely a.
It helps your positioning out too, because if you wanted the 2 very specific orders, you would have to hold those heroes in very specific places to units.
Yep.
But now this allows you to like spread out your heroes and your other buffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we said this was a first impressions live stream, we weren't kidding. It's been like a couple days. We haven't refined our thoughts on this yet. We'll learn along with you guys in the chat. I hope Aventus gets FAQ'd because I don't think he can give +1 hit to Hammerhall right now.
He can.
Is Hammerhall Aksha a different keyword than Hammerhall?
So typically when they write those keywords, it's like I'll have to see. Like if you look at Talia Vedra, it does not say Does it say Hammerhall Aksha or Hammerhall?
Aksha. It says Aksha on her. Yeah.
But is it okay? So yeah, that might be a FAQ question.
It could be the case. Yeah. Because I know there's been other times where they have like Lord and then Lord Relictor, and it's like, is Lord Relictor not
the same as Lord?
Yeah. So technically they're different. So maybe. Who knows? There's definitely a lot of stuff that needs to be FAQ'd and errated in this book. So
my guess is since he's the Magister of Hammerhall, I would say yes. I don't think any TO would say you can't issue the +1 to hit. It just means you can issue +1 to hit to both the Hammerhall armies.
I think they'd be fine comping it until the FAQ corrects what is obviously an oversight.
Yeah. Definitely feels like an oversight on this one. And it's we never truly know intent. It's impossible to know intent, but sometimes it's more obvious than other times. Okay.
But that's not a bad buff either. I mean, having more command points. Aventus is just a good +1 hit generator. 2 spells, has a self-healing thing.
2
monsters,
spells,
so he can roar.
So he can Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt. Watch out.
Well, not just that, but he can also Pyroelectric Blast.
Oh. Step back, everyone.
Yeah, Pyroelectric Blast is so good. But command points are always good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no battle line choices associated with any of these subfactions, which that's kind of annoying, right? That's kind of the only thing Stormcast subfactions do. Like, we kind of forget that there are other abilities. Like, I could play Knights Excelsior and forget that Storm of Annihilation exists, and I'm just doing it for the battle line. And this is kind of the opposite, where there's 0 battle line choices. It's a little weird.
I mean, the cities more or less employ the same units, just some of them specialize in different ways, but I think abilities reflect that better. I mean, it's weird when you take something like a cannon and make it battle line, because the thing is, like, shooting people already don't really like that much, and when you make something battle line, it means it can be spammed. It ignores like the behemoth limits or the artillery limits.
Well, there's no such rule like that for artillery, just for behemoth.
Yeah, but that's also like really annoying. Like monster trucks are just annoying to fight for that reason.
Yeah, nobody liked Iron Blasters, right?
Yeah, it's like it's fine. I'm okay with it.
All right, so actually, I think it's good. What do you guys think? I think
it's good. It's a solid one.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, put it in the top 5. I think it's lower than the top 5, but it's in there.
Yeah, it's like if you're not sure what to play Hammerhall Aksha. You're not gonna have a bad time.
Mm-hmm. All right, Tempest Eye. If you are playing Tempest Eye, all of your units and any Caradron units, including Sky Vessels and the units inside, can retreat and shoot. How good is retreat and shoot in Age of Sigmar? It is nowhere as good as retreat and charge, that's for certain. But it's still useful, right? I couldn't make a list that took advantage of this, though. So I'm not too hot on that ability. What do you guys think?
I thought you made that 14 Gyrocopter list.
I did, but it's better in Living City.
Yeah. Yeah. Retreat and shoot. I feel like this is gonna sound weird. Like this is gonna. I feel this. Some of these subfactions feel like a mismatch in development. What I mean is, like, someone looked at how Tempest Eye was currently playing, which is a bunch of crossbows and like Tempesters. They was like, oh yeah, retreat and shoot would be really cool for this army. And then they just like removed all of those units.
Well, it used to be run and shoot. That was the big thing with the army. So let's just give them not that. Obviously.
I guess it's useful if you're running just a crap ton of Fusiliers and like some Caradron units, and you wanna not shoot at the targets you're in combat with. You want to shoot the other stuff, so that it's like if someone ties you up with something like chav zombies, but their heroes are still working, or their main hammer units are still like running around. This lets you like pull out and shoot whatever you want. So
Not great though,
yeah,
because if
it's not
most of the
nothing
shooting,
to write home about.
Most of the shooting isn't really fast enough to benefit from retreating and shooting. Because a lot of times when you want to retreat, it's because you want to get as far away from the enemy as possible, or onto an objective, or both. Like you want to go somewhere useful with your retreat. And when you have 5-inch move Fusiliers, you can't do that. Does Advance in Formation specify normal move, or just add to the move characteristic?
It's a normal move.
Okay, so yeah, you can't even do that with a retreat. So what is this really for? Like steam tanks, maybe with their 8-inch move.
Yes, they don't want steam tanks. If you don't want steam tanks to get tied up, if you don't want Fusiliers to get tied up, if you don't want cannons to get tied up, right? Like if someone deep strike like
cannons can't retreat.
Oh, because they only move 3.
They only move 3. If you're base to base, you literally can't.
Yeah, I mean, if they wrap you, sure, but sometimes
no.
They have like.
If you're base to base, they can't retreat because you are
They can retreat if you have a command squad, because the command squad, for whatever reason, has defeat the retreat.
That's a weird thing.
A little bit of a weird tip for you there.
Yeah, but if you don't have the command squad, 3-inch move, if you're base to base, you will end exactly 3 inches away, and you can't do that. You have to end more than 3. So
yeah,
terrible. Just a bad
ability. I appreciate how charitable you guys were being. You really did an admirable job trying to salvage this subfaction. This subfaction is not very good. The stuff that you want to be running, you can't give up the other subfactions to take this.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 other very valuable ones that even if you're being nice, the units that can benefit from this will benefit more from the other ones.
Yeah.
So this is a miss for me. This is a bottom 3.
Yeah,
I agree. Yes.
So an army where you retreat and shoot would be useful would be something like Stormcast, maybe. Yes. Right. Ideneth, it's useful there because they're fast and flying, which is 2 very useful combos to have with retreating. There are ways to make retreat and shoot good. It's just this army can't really take advantage of it. And you can only bring. If you bring Coalition, Karadrani would be good, right? Because then you'd go over the 400-point cap. But since best thing you can do is like 2 Thunder or gunboats, right? That's it.
2 gunboats, yeah. Maybe a frigate.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring a frigate for 300. I'd bring 2 of the smaller boats.
Maybe a frigate and a navigator, but that's really
Gunhauler. That's the name. Yeah. That's it, and that's not good. And that's kind of the problem with these subfactions is it's so easy to figure out which ones are good and bad because all the subfaction gives you is this one ability. There's no battle line, there's no artifacts, there's no command traits, there's nothing. So it's really, really easy to figure out which ones are good and bad.
Sorry.
All right. Let's talk Hallowheart, which is in any other army, this would be ridiculously good. This is such a crazy high casting bonus. 3 dice casting for every wizard in your army. Hello, that's so good. That's better than Zytrek for Lumineth, which is +1 to cast. This is insanely good. But is it that good in cities? That's the question. You
mentioned how bad their casting was. This is how you make their casting good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's with primal dice mechanics that we're seeing right now. That's 46. You just can't roll a 1 on anyone because otherwise you might blow up.
Yeah. There's issue. It's a great subfaction. I think it's definitely top 5, maybe top 3. Right. The problem is that the heroes that want to do the casting are so fragile that after 2 turns of doing this, you will be dead. Probably. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Let me weigh in on this because when a lot of the cities players first saw Hallowheart, we're like, oh man, this is a really powerful upside, but it's balanced by a downside.
Is it though? If you're a human.
Well, here's the thing. That's what I'm getting at. So first of all, what is the upside of Hallowheart? Well, it enables the 2 spells that both the elf build and the human build have to get off. You have to get off the blazing weapons and you have to get off tenable blades. It also makes it by that if you're casting on 3d6, you can never miscast. You could primal miscast, but raw you cannot suffer a normal miscast, which does have consideration for doing battle tactics. Putting aside that 3d6 casting is generally good for fishing for stuff like Blizzard. The downside is totally mitigated by the fact that if you're doing a sorceress build, she's got the 4-up board by being near the Blackguard. And if you're doing the human build, you are just going to heal the mortal wounds you take off
with
via
the command troop.
core.
Yep.
The command core. So this really doesn't have much of a downside. And the upside is this makes your combos go off, and the combos really define the army. So I would say this is an easy top 3.
I
don't
agree.
think we can go lower than that. It just depends on if you're a 1-drop, you might need to take this because you have to get those buffs off.
Yep. The difference in performance with this army, if you have those buffs and don't have those buffs, is tremendous. Without the infinite rend on elves or the hit 6 mortals on humans, this army doesn't do anything to armor. Like, Varangar just run you over, and you can't do anything about it. And because the casting in this army is not great, let's say, without this buff, Warforgers are +1, and that's cool. But you're trying to cast 7s and 8s for Hoarfrost and the Aura. So this is really good for that. What would you say is the minimum number of wizards you need to make this good? Just 2? Is 2 wizards enough?
I think so.
I would say 3 would be okay too. Like if I was building a Hallowheart list, I would build it around this new season completely. Kronspine, Rupture, Blizzard, Hoarfrost, all 3.
Hold on. If there's time at the end, could you guys do a tier list of the different color schemes? Ooh, that's an interesting idea.
Hammerhall, Aksha, top.
Are the color schemes the same as in these faction icons here? So
Aksha
would be like the sepia yellow and the red.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically all the shield colors that you see on the army box Battletome cover.
I think I just like Hallowheart the most.
Yeah, I like Hammerhall Aksha. I like Hallowheart, and I think Greywater Fastness doesn't look too bad.
Okay. Well, when we're reviewing these subfactions, we can review the color scheme too. Like give it a ranking out of 10.
Sounds fair.
So yeah, I think Hallowheart, even with just 2 spells, I think honestly, even with 1, if you just need to make sure your hit 6 mortal aura goes off, it's worth using Hallowheart. It's that important of a buff. It's like the Mind Razor of this book. Like it needs to be cast, otherwise you just do nothing. So fantastic, maybe the best subfaction, but definitely top 3. Hammerhall Gyra. I'm less excited about this one. You would think it would be good because all of your guys have Bravery 10, and Bravery is needed to trigger the Free Marshal's heroic action, and Bravery is just useful in general for this army because it doesn't have very good anti-magic, so you're going to get hit by Geminis, you're going to get hit by Horror Gas, you're going to get hit by Bleeding Icons that are going to make your dudes run away, and anything you can do to reduce that is a good thing. That's the theory. In practice, I don't think Flagellants are good enough to see play. Steel Helms aren't going to be reinforced. Cavaliers probably aren't going to be reinforced.
Well, hang on. Are we talking about Gyra?
Yeah, Hammerhall Gyra. You get Bravery 10 if you have 10 or more models. So, like, how often does this matter?
This doesn't really matter. So, okay, this is for if you don't want to bring, like, the command squad or anything that doesn't reduce your battle shock effects. What this is really useful for, and this is, I think, the only niche, is the Marshal has this heroic action that makes your things count as 2 models, and they have to roll 2d6 lower than or equal to your bravery. With bravery 6, that is not going to be possible a lot of the times. You're going to end up rolling 7s and be really sad. But against 10, you might not actually roll 11, 12, so your 20 Steel Helms or like 20 Fusiliers will count as 40 models, which can or can't be pretty useful.
Right.
But it's a niche thing. It's a very niche thing.
It's niche enough that the Marshal doesn't get an F tier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only use I could find for it. Jake, what do you think about this one?
This is quite forgettable. This is very much middle of the pack. There's nothing offensive here. You could create a list that could foreseeably take advantage of the fact that you get an extra reinforcement point here. But this is not by any means within the top 5. I think it's closer to like number 8.
I wish this wasn't restricted to human. I think that I don't get why elves can't be bravery 10 or dwarves. It's weird. It's such a weak effect, and it's so restricted at the same time. Usually, when you have restrictions, the effect gets stronger, right? If we're
Yep.
using like Hunter Nen rules, that's usually how it goes. The more
Sure.
restricted, the more powerful it gets. AOS is the
Yeah.
opposite, I guess. Color scheme though, pretty cool. This kind of like off green, and then this kind of harsher red. It's pretty good. And the black.
Yeah, I don't like that
black
they're
metal.
taking like Living City's old color scheme. They're appropriating it, which I don't love. That was our thing for years. So for that, I'm gonna give them a thumbs down because they're copycats.
I'm gonna give it like a 7. I think it's pretty good. Not the subfaction ability, the color scheme, to be clear. Okay, Living City. Yeah, it's pretty much the same color scheme, right? It's like one tone darker for the red and the green, and that's it. Okay, so Living City. During deployment, you get reserves for Living City and Sylvaneth units, and they come on the table edges, more wholly within 6 inches of the edges, and more than 9 from enemies. This is a long cry from how good it used to be. But honestly, I think it's still playable. I think it's playable.
The problem is, like, they have included exceptions for quite literally all the shooting units for having, so they can't be set up and count as not having moved.
Almost all the shooting units. There's still a few you might want to drop out of reserve.
Sure, like you could drop gyrocopters out of reserve. I think you could drop steam tanks out of reserve. That could be a thing. You could drop some Sylvanet things like Drycha out of reserve, like Kornoth Greatbows if you wanted to.
You can also drop Cavaliers out of reserve, use Finest Hour on a Cavalier Marshal, and then run him wholly within 12 inches of the Cavaliers. It's really telegraphed.
So basically, it's a Gabriel Shoreheart charge, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a board edge. It's what Beast of Chaos does. That's what they're doing with Cavalier Marshal. So yeah, I think while this is good, it's very telegraphed. I think a smart player will be able to outplay this, and I think unlike Beast of Chaos, who have like heroic actions to like move you out of position and stuff, you don't have that. So I don't recommend making that move.
Use the power of nature to ambush your opponent with steam tanks. Yeah. I built a stupid list that had 14 gyrocopters, some of which came out of reserve immediately to shoot you because there was no other subfaction that fit that list. So it's not unplayable, right? Like deep strikes in an army that's this slow should never be underestimated. But
this is a very narrow band. Like, this is a very narrow band of lists that you would run in Living City. Even the steam tank build, you'd want them all. You want them on the board in your first hero phase.
Ethereal,
yeah. The Pope's Ward, they can get Ethereal. They can get the Warforgers save aura for the save stacking. You could, really the only thing I could possibly see you do some Cavaliers off the board edge with the Marshal's Finest Hour. The Gyros are okay. Maybe you do some crazy Luminar crisscross laser light show and just try to mortal wound people off the board. Maybe you're.
I feel like that's too expensive. I feel like
I'm just throwing darts at the wall here, man.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make anything work here.
Yeah, this is like us trying to make Tempest Eye work. I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Luminarts are too expensive to be left out in positions like that.
Hear me out. Hurricanums coming out of reserve. They can't shoot the first turn, but they're not going to shoot the first turn anyway. Nothing's within 18 inches in the hero phase. So they just pop out on the sides in range of anything that needs to die. No matter what happens in the next turn, in the hero phase, they're going to take 43 mortals. And then at the top of the next round, probably another 43 mortals. 83 at that point, yeah. So that's assuming, we all agree they're going to errata Hurricanums, right? There's just no way that unit stays that way.
No, I don't think so.
I think so. I don't think. I think they will errata it, but it'll be a sad day because I don't think the Hurricanum will be worth its points now if it's only shooting in your hero phase. Because it's not online turn 1. And it only matches the damage of the old Hurricanum at the end of battle round 2. So that'll be a sad day. We'll say farewell to the Hurricanum. But I agree, it's a most.
I mean, it's still a good buff piece. If you're not running Master of Ballistics, you might consider running it.
You might consider it. Yeah.
Maybe. Toralon's there, Ordinator's there. There's other choices for a +1 hit. But okay, so Living City, not great. I would call this one middle of the pack, where it's got like a specific niche you'd want to run with it. But it's not like you don't see the subfaction and then want to build a list around it. It's kind of the other way around. You build the list first and then say, well, I guess Living City, sure, why not?
this will not be a competitive mainstay. You won't go to a GT and say, "Oh, look at all the Living City players."
Yeah. Okay. Color scheme, 7 out of 10. Same as the other one. It's the same color scheme.
This is my army's color scheme. I'm gonna give it a 10. I'm not
Ooh,
biased. I'm just
okay.
saying it. I'm telling it like it is.
Those like couple different points on the color scale, that's enough to get the 10 out of 10.
I'll give it a 10. Yeah, it's just got a more satisfying. The green's just more satisfying. It's less. It's bold, darker.
It's
There's
browner,
some
yeah.
mystery behind that oak. I like it.
Nice. Okay, moving on to Greywater Fastness, which I was ready to rank as the best one until I read the stipulation that the Master of Ballistics doesn't work the way I thought it did. It has to. It's not just when a unit receives all-out attack. It's the general issuing it in particular. So basically, you get all-out attack, 2 free command points per turn, and you can issue all-out attack to 3 different units in the shooting phase, and that's great because this army uses a lot of commands. So just saving commands is good. And you're going to bring at least 2 or 3 units that shoot, right? And it's not like restricted to human or anything stupid. So if you have a shooting attack on some unit, you might as well use it. So
yeah, I mean, I like this. This is, in my opinion, this is a shooting army first and foremost. So I think Greywater Fastness just leans into that. I think this is going to be the de facto pick for a lot of people. So I don't know, Frog. What do you think?
I think this will be quite common out the gate. But I think when we all came to our senses and realized Master of Ballistics doesn't spread, the value went down a little bit. Again, you have to have the shooting units in your list to take advantage of it. So if you're running just a 30 Fusil build, you won't use it. Even a 30-20 build, currently you'd probably take a Hurricane in your
you
behemoth
might
slot.
the free command point every turn. That's not bad.
You might. It's not. This is not a bad. This is a good sub-faction. Let's be clear. This is a good sub-faction.
Top 5, maybe top 3.
Yes, it's not the auto take it was when we thought that Master of Ballistics can bounce.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of configurations where this will be the pick. It's competing with Hallowheart because the buffs are so important. That's the number. Between those two right now, those are the number 1, number 2. Spoiler alert: Misthaven's also in the top 3. And what one you'll pick, I think, will probably just depend upon your list configuration.
If one of the free times you issue a command is done by a Steam Tank commander, can he then issue all-out attack a 3rd time for free? Would that work?
Well, it bounces to 2, right? That's when he does it.
Yeah, and the second time he does it, it's free, right? So it doesn't matter, I guess, if the first time he does it is free. So basically what I'm saying is you issue all-out attack with something, then the Steam Tank commander issues it again. That's the second time you use it in the round. And then then he gets to issue it a 3rd time to a Steam Tank. So if you have, for example, 2 Steam Tanks and Fusiliers, all 3 could get all-out attack without spending a command point, I think.
Yep.
That seems right.
Yep.
Seems right. So that's pretty cool, because Steam Tanks are playable. They're not trash. So yeah, I think top 3 for sure.
Yep, easily. No disagreement.
Color scheme, I think this is rad. Just this kind of dark green on top of the light green with a little hints of white bordering it. I think this is pretty cool. So that's like a 9 out of 10 for me. It's one of the cooler ones.
The tabards are actually yellow now.
Oh, really?
Yellow. Yeah, they've got yellow tabards. It's kind of cool.
I think it's like these guys have a pretty iffy relationship with the Sylvanet because they're encroaching on their realms.
Good.
So they're not like the Living City or Hammerhall Gaia or whatever. So yeah, from what I've read in the lore, so that's why the green probably makes sense.
Burn them all down, I say. Those trees are attacking you. It's self-defense. Just be in the woods punching trees, don't mind me. All right. Lethis. So, I love effects like this where just blanket all your heroes get X effect, like Cabalist and Slaves of Darkness. All your heroes become wizards, and all your heroes that are already wizards get to learn and cast another spell. I love stuff like that. This is way worse than that, because it's just for humans. And it's just for humans that aren't wizards. And most of the heroes in your army will be wizards. The only ones that you're going to use that aren't are like the Fusil Major, which frankly you might take an Arcane Tome on. Free Guild General on Griffin sometimes. You'll use him and he'll be a priest. And Marshal, I guess, could be a priest as well. Okay. And the prayer you get is really good, right? 12-inch range, shut off wards on a 4-up. It's like not the best thing in the world. It's unreliable, but when it goes off, shutting off wards is a huge damage boost. So why isn't it good? Why is it
because it's not a 3, it's a 4. and they have
Yeah.
no bonuses
Yeah.
to chanting.
You get a bunch of extra nodes in your army that can also cast Curse, which is actually pretty good.
That
but
is,
like
I do like that.
yeah, but the problem is like this. There's no guaranteed power on this. It's wow, this is cool if I roll a 4 up and they're in range.
Yeah. Being within
So-
12 in the hero phase is not easy.
Not easy at all. So a lot of the time, this just doesn't equate to any actual in-game impact before it's actually too late to salvage whatever situation you might be in. Is it cool? Yeah, it is cool. You could definitely make an argument that this it's playable. It's fun. It's playable. It's not top 5 for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not consistent power. I want something that is going to influence fundamentally how the army is played, and I know I have it active, and it's making a difference on turn 1, which is not Lethis.
hmm Now, it does allow you to dispel with every single hero, which is neat.
Yeah, take that corn.
Yeah, banish and dispel, yep. I guess, would you ever bring like a Lord Relictor who gets +1 to chanting so that you could get this off on a 3? Is that worth 150 points?
I think if you're playing Lethis, you might as
No.
well at that point.
No.
You're already committed to the bid.
No.
Why not? You know?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was actually most looking forward to Lethis because their story is the coolest one to me.
I thought this was going to be the Deepkin city, but they went a totally different
Yeah,
direction.
right?
Yeah.
With the Sea of Corpses near it and everything.
Yeah, this could have been cool. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool. It's fun. I know there's some.
Wait,
Lethis
wasn't Lethis the place of the Stormwall?
Yep, that's where Catacross'
Where the
soul
la-
was
where
being
the
held.
Where Anvils and I think Idnet were defending it. Yeah.
And then the Fire Slayers turned on everyone. And then the Flesh Eater Courts showed up and saved everyone. That was a weird day. Color scheme is baller, though. That kind of like pinkish, purplish hue on top of black and then like a solid white. Yeah, that's a great color scheme. That's like a 9 out of 10.
I'll give that a 9.
Yeah. All right, Vindicarum is competing for the worst, I think. Rally in combat is good. Flagellant's getting a 5-up rally instead of a 6. And a vacuum is good. It's like it's not making your army worse. Would you ever use Flagellants though?
It's worse
Flagellants?
zombies.
Much worse zombies.
Yeah, because Flagellant's main shtick is dying like zombies do, or used to before the battle scroll. But since Flagellants don't have a save, they're essentially going to be relying on the Pontifex's 5-up ward and a 5-up rally from this thing. So
yeah,
how good is that? I don't know.
30 models for 300 points with a 6-up save. That's just bad. Wouldn't you rather just use Steel Helms? Is there any reason to use Flagellants? Besides the fact that it kind of sounds like flatulence?
So this army doesn't have mortal wounds outside of like getting blazing weapons off. So if you wanted another source without having to get it off, I could get that.
Is it like they're not even super high volume or anything? They're just 2 attacks a model like everything else. Like they're not unique. So it's
Yeah,
not like,
yeah, they're not anything special. Yeah.
yeah, they're just not good. So, Jake, what do you think? Vindicarum competing for worst
Don't
slot?
love it. Like there's one. Like again, this is the only for this. They made a subfaction that's for one build, which is you're running like 2 times 30 or 4 times 20 flagellants, and you're just gonna try to like roleplay as crematorians, and like, wow, I hope this works. I've got 2 command squads, so I can regenerate 63 and rally in combat, maybe with Talia, who you shouldn't be taking. Yeah, it's a subfaction that enables a niche build. It's fun. If someone owns 60 or 80 flagellants, I'd like to meet that person.
Yeah, this is where the meme. This is where people who have
this is
builds
the
like
meme.
that. This is someone who really likes the cult of Sigmar. You know, a bunch
Yeah.
of witch hunters and a bunch of flagellants.
Yeah,
They're like, yeah, we gave you a toy. Go play with it.
Devin raises a good point. Like if you just forget flagellants, okay, just pretend you don't see flagellants there. If you were making some kind of crazy like Blackguard board control spam build, foreseeably rallying them in combat would be fine. You could issue multiple rallies with a Sorceress on Black Dragon. I am digging here. I'm reaching here, but that's a build that could benefit from this.
Like a 30 block of Ironbeards rallying in combat would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
just
anything
forget
that's a tar pit that could rally in combat
Yeah.
would be insane.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how useful that is. There's a lot of things in the game that turn off wards right now. There was a time Phoenix Guard were like top of the line, and now they're not.
Mm.
So
Yeah, good luck stopping the Starseer spell, right?
Yeah, good luck stopping Starseer. Good luck stopping OBR, you know? Good luck
Mhm.
stopping Soulblight Gravelords with the stupid Legion of Blood nonsense.
Yeah, yeah. Color scheme is baller though, right? Because they dress up like the Celestial Vindicators, who are like top 3 Stormcast color scheme. So you add like that kind of teal with gold and silver, and that's a baller color
Yeah.
scheme. So
Yeah, it's a baller color scheme, for sure.
Icon is cool too. Look at this thing. Look at this sweet tower with all the gears and everything. It's great. All right, Excelsis. Okay. I'll just read what it does, and then I will not give my opinion, and I will let you guys talk first. So first off, all your monsters get +1 to wound characteristic, and then after you attack with Cavaliers, you roll a dice for each Cavalier, and you do like an Evocator blast. Instead of Evocators do it like 3 per Dracoline, these guys do it 1 per model. So 5 guys, you roll 5 dice, each 4 up as a mortal wound. If you have 10 Cavaliers in the unit, you roll 10 dice, it's each 4 up as a mortal wound. What do you guys think about Excelsis?
Do you want to go first?
James, you want to weigh in on this one? What do you think?
I can take it. I'll jump under the bus. You got. I'll take the bullet. Okay, guys.
All right,
I'll
go for it.
Go for it, Frog. Go for
All
it.
right. What is this thing trying to be? Very weird set of things, especially because Excelsis was an established city in the last book and had really nothing to do with thematically what they're doing here. Add 1 to the wounds characteristic of friendly Excelsis monsters that might as well not exist.
Who is a Excelsis monster here? I mean, let's assume for a second that
Hydra.
Yeah, but like those don't even exist in Excelsis.
No,
From what I've read of Excelsis,
they do. They sure as heck do. In the battle for Excelsis, they had a whole bunch of naval sea creatures come out and wreck stuff up. So that part of it exists.
It's just
the Cavalier
so
part.
Weird.
It's the Cavalier part that doesn't fit with the lore.
Yeah, like what are they doing?
Okay,
they should have just been like +1 to. Why couldn't this be like the Knights Excelsior buff, +1 to hit and wound for Cavaliers? That would have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Cavalier part of this rule from like a rules perspective. Cavaliers are really a unit that for a couple of reasons, unless you're trying to do like a FOSS protection like pin build, they're mostly going to be running MSU. I think you're going to have the 5-mans. And so it's like, would you spend your subfaction to maybe get 1 or 2 mortal wounds extra of their output when they fight? Probably not. Almost definitely not, in my opinion. If I'm going to be running Cavaliers, it's going to either be as like an accessory to Fusilier Castle build, which would be Hallowheart, or if I'm really leaning into Cavaliers a bit more, perhaps I'm playing Misthaven because they've got the 2d6 bonus move, which gives them a pretty obscene threat range. So this is not even the best cavalry subfaction, despite the fact that it's explicitly only for the Cavaliers.
Maybe if this was like for every mounted unit, and then if it was a monster, it could do like 5 dice or something. Like this. Sure. They really did not push this concept far enough.
No,
really could have gone further.
Big miss for me.
Yeah. So it's not one of the worst ones though. Like it's not like Tempest Eye bad or or Vindicarum. Not that bad. Tempest. Yeah, but it's lower middle, bottom 5, let's say.
Yeah, it's gonna do what, 2 mortal wounds, 3 maybe per unit of Cavaliers. Is that worth a subfaction? I don't know. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
It's not. It's also not worth reinforcing Cavaliers because they're only 10 wounds per squad, and if you reinforce
also 1
them,
inch reach.
Yeah, that's a problem. Their damage is limited. But if your opponent sees you have 10 Cavaliers in a unit, they just killed 360 points all at once. Like they're so, like 3-up save doesn't go enough. They're gonna die.
Yeah, the Cavaliers have a lot of virtues. I'm pro Cavalier despite their negatives. We can get into that later. Mm-hmm. But putting them in 10s, I think they're a trading unit. They're there to trade. Yep. So once you accept that, they're very good at their job. But I think if you're trying to make them into something they're not, which is what Excelsis is incentivizing you to do and taking blocks to maximize the mortal wounds, it's just not it's a square peg, round hole type deal.
You basically treat them like Grand Hammers. They charge in, they kill something, then you expect them to die. But they waste your opponent's time in dying. So that's kind of a win too. Because if they don't kill them, they're going to get charged again, and that's not good for them.
Yep.
So, Excelsis doesn't get there, I don't think. Color scheme? emblem, I don't know what their actual color scheme is, but the emblem is not great. It's a little too drab, you know?
Yeah, it's very gurish, which I don't even know what the Excelsis color scheme is. I'm Googling it as we speak.
We'll figure it out.
Well, I've never seen Excelsis army on the board. I've never seen it played, so
Because
I
it was
have no idea.
it was in the back of one campaign book. And,
Yeah.
And I've never seen an Excelsis army on the table. It doesn't excel, but I'm disc. That's a good one, Kelly. Okay, Settlers Gain. Settlers Gain, +1 casting for all wizards. Again, any other army, this is amazing, right?
Yep. Yep.
Free command point every turn if you bring any Lumineth hero. Cool. Why is this in the same book as Hallowheart? Like, Hallowheart just mogs this so hard. It's not fair.
We can just stop right there. That's it. Like, gets mogged by Hallowheart. Settlers Gain. Cool. You maybe take a Lumineth hero, but the problem is taking a hero ally is a massive opportunity cost because that's a hero slot that cannot give orders.
It's not a Warforger either. That's a bigger cost.
It's also not a Warforger. Many things are not Warforgers, and if they're not Warforgers, they don't get the slots.
Yes, there's very few things in your list that cannot be a Warforger.
Yep, competitively, just play Hallowheart. Settlers Gain is a cool army thematically, though. I'm sure you could. There's some absolutely beautiful Settlers Gain armies.
This was like a thing. All these subfactions, like they just included these for narrative players because a lot of people just like the idea of Settlers Gain.
Yeah,
sure.
You know,
honestly,
Lumineth having a city to themselves or something.
The game would be better if more people just played that way and not competitively like what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Mist Haven, I think it's called, or Haven. I think it's Haven, right? That would make sense.
Whatever, Mist Haven.
I say Haven because it sounds exotic.
Ooh, fancy.
Sounds Nordic.
At the end of your hero phase, 3 different units get to move D6. As long as you're not within 12 inches of an enemy, you get to move D6. And if you're mounted, and for some reason that has a slash in it, which is the weirdest typo I've ever seen, although I shouldn't be judging given how many typos were in this live stream. If it's mounted, it can take 2d6 instead of d6. And this move can finish within 3 inches of enemy units. So that's very, very interesting. I mean, that won't happen with the d6 because you have to be more than 12 from enemies, so even if you move 6. But for mounted units, being able to finish within 3 inches is very good. But it stops you from charging. And most units that are mounted want to charge, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of units that this would be good with. The best idea I can come up with is dwarves.
Yeah, for me, it's foot infantry, right? You give advance in formation for +3 move, and you get this. You're basically going an extra 3 plus d6 every turn when you move.
Yep. You get a free murder list. This enables the dwarf lists, but it's just generically good. Like, would I like a free 2d6 move in my cav? Yeah, absolutely. It makes battle tactics that require positioning, of which there are a few in this GHB, much more achievable. It does let you correct positioning because you could do, for instance, let's say, I'm out of range of my command squad Sawbones. I'm going to fix that with Misthaven. Now I'm going to Sawbones.
No, because it's end of hero
What
phase.
I like best with this
no, Sawbones is
like,
end too, right?
Sawbones
yeah.
is
Okay, yeah.
The best thing to do with the city is moving in the hero phase at the end of the hero phase does not break Cast a Light formation. So if you did not want to issue the order,
on its own, it does. But since you can just not move in the following movement phase, then it's fine. Because Castle Light breaks anytime you make any move, even a pilot.
No, it says it's if you ended a move or set up in in the movement phase.
No. You regain it if you don't move in the movement phase.
Oh, sure. But like, is there an interaction that would not? Who cares?
Any kind of move you make breaks it. But like I said, you can just not move in the following movement phase, and then you get it back.
So that's what I mean. Like, it lets you basically, if you didn't want to issue the order for the hero to for all the Cast Light units to pick up their stuff and move, or wanted to move Iron Drakes a bit further, I guess. Sure, there you go.
Yeah, it's given how slow this book is, even just D6 on 3 units ends up looking real good. Even if you roll a bunch of 1s, that still looks good. +1 move for 3 units is a good buff, right? I'd say this is top 3 along with Hallowheart and Greywater, right?
I think we all agree on that, yeah.
Yeah. It's also worth pointing out, I know we're done talking about Living City, but this season's battle tactics prop up Living City a little bit more than other seasons, right? Because you need to surround and destroy, you need to intimidate. So there's certainly an argument that if all of these other sub-factions aren't doing enough for you, then Living City just making it easier to score 2 battle tactics might be worth picking. Yeah, anyway, just a side thought.
That's fair. Yep.
All right. So we did a lot of discussion there about the units while we were talking about it. So
Couldn't
let's it's part of the conversations, but that means we can get through these faster, right?
Yeah.
Probably not. Right. Let's start with Talia. So gorgeous new model, right? This Manticore is sick. Love
Beautiful.
that. Great style, great pose. It's not like a goofy Star Drake or anything. Like, just knocked it out of the park with this model. Do the rules line up with how good the model is? I don't think they do. I think she is the Andrasta of Cities of Sigmar, in that she is overcosted. She has a weird mix of support, and her damage isn't good enough. Decent speed, like 14-inch flying move is great, right? But because she's so expensive, it's like you don't get enough damage out of her, and if you're not getting both her damage and her sustain, let's say from the rally, she doesn't feel worth 340 points. That's my take on her. What do you guys think? Just maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here. Maybe we should explain what she does.
No, actually, Frog, go ahead.
Yeah, Talia. Really want to like her. Really want to like her. But she's awkward and she's overpriced for what she is.
Mm-hmm.
She's not 340 points of smash. She smashes worse than the 270 point Smash Griffin, where you give him the Sigmarite Warhammer enhancement.
Yep.
If you just want a smashy hero, take him. So the question is, do her abilities make up for her point cost? Well, she's got a ward of 6+. Well, you've got a 5-up ward from the Pope, who is going to be in every human list.
Yep.
So that's ignorable.
I guess, like, that first turn, if you're not going first, it's better than not having a 6-up ward.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fail at prayer, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Her other big, she has the same thing the Free Guild Marshal has on the Griffin. She once per game. I think she can issue the same order twice. That's fine, or not the same order twice. Sorry, she can give 2 orders. That's fine. But it's not once per game, so she just gets 2 orders. Doesn't get there for me, but it's a nice bonus. The rally sounds really good, right? 4-up rally in combat.
Oh yeah. Great. How many times have we seen 4-up rallies in, like, Daughters of Cain and Fire Slayers and a few other armies, and, like, they're just broken good. They're so good that, like, the optimal way of playing Fire Slayers is retreating out of combat on your turn, rallying back, and then charging back in, and you just kind of bounce units back and forth. Like, that's how good a 4-up rally is.
Absolutely. But the problem is, context breaks it down. So she has to be in combat for the 4-up rally to turn on. Yep. And then the question becomes, well, what are you 4-up rallying? We've discussed you're likely running minimum size cav units. I'm not super hot on big blobs of 20 steel helms, but that's basically the target for it, or this flagellant build we don't love. And if you're looking for recursion, you're just going to get that anyway through the command squad, who I think is an auto include, but I'll get to that later.
Yeah, the command core really makes her
I could see this as a way to, like, rally some Fusiliers too if they get tagged for some reason and they get damaged before you hit someone. Her main problem is, okay, so with her mobility and her survivability, she's not meant to go out and fly ahead of her formation and, just kill things. She's not a smash monster. She's supposed to stay with her guys and discourage you from engaging the castle, because she will sally out of the castle and hit something really hard in combination with other things in your army. My main issue with Talia is she is way too overcosted. 340 points for this unit is insane for a unique unit. It should be, like, closer to 290, 280. And then I would maybe consider playing her. She's also locked to Hammerhall Aksha, so you can't, like, do crazy gray water fastness things with her or something like that.
She has the potential to become good. But
it's just a matter of points. Good. Yeah, it's just a matter of points.
And her rampage is very situational, and it's like, if you really want this rampage, just bring a Tree Lord, right? Tree Lord uses it on everything, and this is only on monsters, so that's not great.
Yeah, I agree. It's also like they have to charge you versus the Tree Lord, you just get to do it.
Yeah. she doesn't do anything unique except the 4-up rally, and because she has to be in combat in order to use it, and because this army doesn't really want the biggest rallies, like, and it's only on human units, so you can't even get like a 4-up rally on dwarves or elves, which are actually the stuff that would want it. Like, it's all just like, it's other stuff is going to do this better and cheaper.
I think you buy this model because you want to paint it. She looks gorgeous, and it's an investment in the future. Wait for a couple battle scrolls. It comes down to 300, 280.
Yeah, I mean, this comes down. This comes down to 280. Then it becomes very.
This is totally playable. Yep.
I got 2 words for you guys. Counts as Torlon. Counts as Free Guild Marshal on Griffin. How many other things can we think of? Because that's what I would use this model for. The rules ain't it. The points ain't it. Yep. She's not bad, just 280 and she sees play, I think. Yeah, okay. Moving on. Pontifex Zenestra. 9 wounds, 4-up ward, so tough cookie. Can't be shot, because less than 10 wounds. Garbage melee damage, like, might as well just do 0 melee damage, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It has this weird useless text about how she can dispel endless spells. She's a priest. She can already do that. That's wasted text. She can unbind 1 enemy spell. Okay. +1 unbinding priest. That's neat. And then her prayer is ridiculously good.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's a 3-up answer value. Oh, that feels bad. But basically, you have a 5-up ward aura, wholly within 18. And then as soon as you leave your territory, you just start blasting every priest and wizard on the table for D3 mortal wounds twice. Because it doesn't say pick 2 different effects. So you can pick the same effect twice. So as soon as she gets out of your territory and you need to be aggressive, she's just nuking every support hero in the enemy army. But until then, every turn she's using a 5-up ward, right? Because it's not...
Yep.
Like, +2 move is not as good as a 5-up ward.
No.
Probably not.
She costs 150 points. If you're playing humans, Pontifex Zenestra is in your list.
Yep.
That's really the start and the end of it. You should definitely, if you have never played with mystical terrain, you should start insisting to play with mystical terrain, because you want to park her right next to you want to get that +1 to chanting rolls. It really makes a big difference.
Yep.
This unit has been taking a lot of heat from the community as a whole as like the solely most undercosted unit in the book.
I don't think she's undercosted. Maybe like 10 points.
No, she's fine.
That's fair.
That's fine. Like, she is completely necessary to stop this army from like just melting turn 1.
Dying to Starborn, among other things.
Not just Starborn, any chip damage in the world. These lads have bravery 5. They have no defense against mortal wounds. They have no real, like, even anti-rend 2 defense. Without this effect, the army just dies, and she still has to make that 3-up roll.
I agree with that. I think the hidden allegiance ability of Cities of Sigmar is you can include Pontifex Zenestra for 150 points.
Yeah,
that's the hidden.
It's like Gardas. It's like Hallowed Knights for
you
us.
Can have
like, yeah, we can have Gardas. It's not about the Redeemer crap. It's Gardas.
Gardas is a very good comparison because that's all she is. She's a 5-up ward on a stick, right? But Gardas does it better because Gardas can deep strike. Gardas can be translocated. Gardas also has Saintly Assault to boost damage. Gardas doesn't need a turn to activate his effect. Gardas can't fail his ward, and then you're screwed, and everything dies horribly around you. 150 points is just fine for her. She doesn't do anything except give a 5-up ward and a +1 unbind. Like, those things are worth 150.
Also, it is not that easy to get her, because it doesn't say get her outside your territory, because, it is in some matches, it'll be very difficult to get her outside your territory.
Very much so, yes. On some battle plans, limited resources... Spring the Trap comes to mind unless you're playing her on a flank for some reason, but you don't want to do that. You want to be central with her. This is fine. Like, it seemed overpowered. When you first read it, you first see her points, you're like, 9 wounds and a 4-up ward? That's insane. She doesn't do anything. She's just a ward. She's
this
attacks.
Is the glue that makes the army function.
Yeah.
And it's such a tough Warscroll to balance, because if it goes to 200 points, it's like, well, damn. Now I'm paying 200 points for something I have to take. But again, 1 or 2 turns of the game on average, I don't get my ward. She does literally nothing. So yeah, tough to balance from that perspective. I think 150 will end up being a necessary evil, and I think once people kind of calm down and come to the senses.
Yeah. What's weird to me is that she's not locked to. Okay, I know this is going to be a terrible take. People are going to hate me for this. She should be locked to a subfaction. because she is a mortal that's being carried around by two dudes.
Wow.
How can she be in all these different battles in every realm? You know, like the cities are in one realm. Most people that live don't leave the realm that they're born in ever. Sometimes they don't even know the other realms exist. So I'm supposed to think that this is a lady that's just traversing every realm all the time. It's weird, okay? For story reasons, I think she should be locked to a subfaction like how the Talia is. I don't think any of her abilities should be locked, but I think
I'll be honest. I think she's an illusion. I don't know if you've seen the model. She has a skeleton on the back of the chair that has the same scars as her.
Yeah.
I think the skeleton is the real priest. I think the priest is an illusion.
There's all sorts of theories in the book. One of them is that that's her grandma, and that it's like a succession of pontifexes, and when one of them passes away, the next one, gouges out her eye to get some powers or whatever, and they just carry on the will of Sigmar, something like that. So, and the cult of the wheel is a whole thing. Wheels are sacred, and that's why she has to be carried around. But there's nothing else about cults in the book at all. Like, where's the other half of this release that should be here to fit this theme? That's a weird thing. No, I think 150 is fine for her. She's just a tax on the army, frankly. Like, she's making human builds worse because you have to bring her, and you have to pay 150 points for her, and you have to play within her aura.
Yep.
Yeah, it sucks.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting design direction they went with this model from a rules perspective. Kind of hate it. I kind of hate that I have to do this.
People are gonna hate this.
Yeah, I don't think either player really loves it. Like, it's not particularly engaging for either player.
And then it can fail, and the prayer can fail, and you're taxed on something that only has a 2 in 3 chance of succeeding.
Yeah,
and it needs a turn. So if you're going second, you can just get hit so hard you get obliterated. Oh man, it's just terrible design. Actually, I hate the design, but you can't deny she's S tier. She's like one of the best units in the book.
Yeah, she's a monkey's paw S tier. She's not the S tier we wanted, but she's the one we got.
Yep. All right. Flagellants. Just bad, right? 100 points for 10 of these guys.
Nope, don't want it.
If they were 80, they could have a niche of being the cheapest battle line, but they're not even that. They're the same cost as Steel Helms, and there's nothing propping them up. Like, I guess if you have a screen that's just gonna die, these guys do mortals on death, and Steel Helms don't. But why wouldn't you just have armor on a screen so it can maybe survive some lighter damage? It just seems more useful. And Steel Helms make Fusilier's battle line.
Yeah, this does not really compare to the human options. It's vastly worse than the elf options for damage dealing, because Corsairs are 90 points.
And look at these models. Look at this.
Also, the models are horrendous, and I own them because you had to play Flagellants last season as cities because you needed the Flagellant battle tactic.
There's no battle tactic for them even.
Now that's gone.
There's no justification for these guys.
No, I hate these guys. I don't want to see Flagellants ever again in my life.
Wave 2, they'll get new models, they'll get new rules, and everybody will love them. Wave 2 is going to be cults. They're going to get rid of the elves and the Dwarden, and it's just going to be the cults of Sigmar. And that's going to be cool. But yeah, okay. Free Guild Marshal on Griffin. I think it's a sleeper. I think it's better than it looks, right? Because human builds are so good, and because you can assume you will always have +1 save, and you'll usually have a 5-up board, this guy's way tougher than he looks. Because you'll have that 3-up save, not characteristic, but everybody has Rend, so it's basically the same thing. And 15 wounds with a 5-up board is actually tough. And then you give him the artifact to get +1 Rend and +1 damage on any of those weapons. Frankly, they all look good. And that's already a good beat stick for 270 points with Roar, with double Roar. And because it doesn't say you can pick 2 different enemy units, you can pick the same unit twice to make sure your Roar goes off. It's the best Roar in the game. And it gets 2 orders, which is like awesome. That's a really good effect in this army. So, great unit. Sleeper hit, I think.
This guy's very good. The reason why, besides all the things you mentioned, is because when you're making battle regiment lists, this army has a hard time taking reinforced hammers. It is hard to reinforce. If you're doing a human build specifically, it's hard to reinforce cav, as we discussed. So this guy actually ends up being point for point your best countercharge hammer. He is very deadly on the turn that he goes in, with because he'll be finest hour, engage the foe, so he's got +1 attack on all of his profiles, and he'll be 2s and 2s. He's got the extra rend on the lance. If you're charging, you might take the lance. Damage 4. This guy has very competitive damage for a monster. His durability is deceptive. He is a very good option that many of us actually overlooked.
Yeah,
initially.
he's great.
He's
Yeah, Mergonk, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he's actually more. I think unless Talia Vedra goes down, I think this guy will see more play. We mentioned how good Hammerhall Actual was. I think this guy giving you the effect of that makes him an include. And as Frog mentioned earlier, you can turn him into a Smash Captain with the 5 of War from the Pontifex, which is, as we mentioned, an auto take, and the +1 aura from a Warforger. It actually makes him quite tanky. He's not going to go down without a fight. I really like the double roar. I think it doesn't seem very obvious because you're like, well, I'm only roaring one thing at a time. I've encountered so many situations where I'm in combat with 2 or more units and I need to roar them both. This would kill something like an Iron Jaws list, and for that alone, I think it's great. I will always build this with the Warhammer because I think that looks like all friends. That's just me, but Lance might probably be better for your tastes.
Well, the max damage is the same on the Great Hammer and the Lance. If you have the artifact, right? And 3 attacks at 4 damage or 4 attacks at 3 damage.
It's just how many dice do you want to roll? How many points of failure?
If you're charging, the Lance gets very slightly better, but I think this guy's going to be stuck in combats often. And without some way to disengage and retreat and charge, there's definitely a valid argument to just take the Great Hammer instead.
Yep. Either way, this guy is quite good.
One last thing I want to mention: his 14-inch move is great, right? There's not a lot of fast units in the book, but it's the fact that he's flying. Like a flying countercharge is way more likely to get off than a regular countercharge because there could be terrain, there could be units in the way. You can actually just put a screen in the way, and then when your opponent charges in, you countercharge, and you get the charge bonus that turn, right? So lots of play with that flying that shouldn't be ignored. There's almost no flying in this book, so that's actually really useful.
Yep. And he's also, remember, he can benefit from his own order as well. So the turn, if you really need to send him somewhere, he can go 17.
Yep. Oh, and he's free guild, so if he's your general, you unlock Cavaliers as battle line.
Yep. So
just does a little bit of everything.
He does everything. He's good. We like him.
Yeah. On the other hand, free guild Marshal on foot.
I don't like him.
Honestly, when this unit was spoiled, I'm like, oh, this must have a host of abilities because he's
tons
he's
of
the
options.
Foot commander.
Yep.
But oh my god, is this like a Stormcast Battletome level miss on the Marshal? All he's good for doing is either generating you a command point, effectively like a free command, or carrying out that once per battle heroic action to make them count as 2 models each.
Which is not guaranteed. Requires a dice roll.
Unless you're Hammerhall Gyra, that won't be guaranteed.
I guess I would sum up my thoughts by saying this guy's 90 points. You know what else is 90 points? The Alchemite Warforger.
Yeah.
There's no world where this guy ever gets a hero slot in your army.
You know what I would have liked? We're going to talk about this when we get to the command squad, because you can attach the command squad to him. If it made the entire command squad heroes, so that they can't be shot, because they get the superpowered lookouts, sir, I would have liked that.
This guy in the command squad should have been 1 unit.
Yeah.
That's my short version. Okay, there's 2 uses for this guy. 1, you're playing Hammerhall Gyra, and you want to reliably activate his effect, so everything's Bravery 10, and you can count as 2 models, right? That's the first use. The second use, oh god, I just forgot it. Oh, he's the cheapest free guild unit, hero.
Yep.
So if you make him your general to unlock Cavalry Battle Line, or Cavalier Battle Line, that's a use. It's not good, but it's a use. So he's not irredeemably garbage. The Warforger is just better.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, same point cost. Why is this
Can I just mention a point of irritation for me, personally? Yeah. He has the exact same stats as a Stormcast Lord Celestin, in terms of damage, health, move, and everything.
Not damage. He has 1 less attack, for the record. He's 8 damage instead of 10. It shouldn't be this close. He shouldn't hit harder than a Stormcast Knight. That shouldn't be the
more
case.
Just the same as healthy, 5 wounds, 3 up save.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I know.
What is the point of Sigmarite armor?
This heroic action, first off, shouldn't be a heroic action. It should just be an ability.
Be a thing. Yeah.
Right?
If this was an ability, yeah.
Because
if he got to do this heroic action, like if you pick this guy to do heroic action, he can do this in addition to any other heroic actions.
Yes.
Now, I love custom heroic actions. I love new rampages. I love when they do stuff like this. But this effect isn't good enough to justify losing a heroic actions, and heroic actions ain't worth much, right? So that should tell you how little I think of this ability. It's also just once per game. Why is it once per game? Who's gonna?
Yeah, it's not.
So stupid.
Yeah, in a game where we're constantly like, I don't understand who Games Workshop asked to design this book, because it baffles me, because we have a game right now where we have 60 zombies rallying back to 30 zombies, 40 skeletons, coming back to 20 skeletons. Would it be so bad if a 2d6 roll, which you will fail a lot of times unless you're Hammer Halgyra, could make a bunch of steel helms count as like two models each? No,
aren't they like bravery 5 and 6? Like,
yeah,
you're so much more likely to fail this than pass it.
Yeah.
And then it's once per game. This is like one of those once per game 4-up abilities, but it's actually less. It's once per game 5-up. That's how bad this is. And you pay 90 points for this, and you question yourself. Not good, but not totally worthless. Maybe it needs to be 70 points.
Or maybe he gets better when the Warforger goes up.
He would look yeah.
No, I mean, no. I still think, I think he needs to be 70. I think Paul's right. I think it would have to be. I would find the points for Warforger before I still take him.
Yeah.
But if he was 70, I would consider him, because then he unlocks Cavaliers.
He's also an order. For 70 points for an order on the table that your opponent will never kill, because it's just a waste of attacks. That's not the worst
also,
thing.
like, free CP could matter. Like, I don't know how much, but it could matter.
It could. This army doesn't generate commands otherwise, right? So it's not the worst thing.
Well, so this guy's never going to be in your battle regiment list. So if you're playing a really wide list where you don't really care about your hero slots as much, and you just want the cheapest orders imaginable, you might as well take the Vendensts. They're effectively 2 heroes that are 80 points each. They both give an order, 5-up ward, actually do damage.
Yeah.
They don't do anything else, but they do damage sometimes. So yeah, I don't know. This guy is. He's not for me. He's not in my army. He's not leading my forces. My city does not have a Free Guild Marshal.
It just feels like 2 different people designed this guy and the Free Guild Marshal on Griffin. Just like one understands the game and the other one doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Free Guild Cavalier Marshal. Now, this guy, when he was revealed, I thought very highly of him the first time I saw this War Scroll. There's a lot of great stuff going on, right? Like, he's got a pistol. Okay, why not? You can bait out all-out attack with it sometimes. 7 wounds on a 3-up save. Great stat line for defensively. Decent melee attacks, right? Like 8 damage on 3s, rend 1, and a horse that will maybe do something sometime. Plus 3 charge aura for Cavaliers. That's cool. And he strikes first, and he drags Cavaliers into combat with him, which gets around, enemy strike last effects and strike first and all that stuff. So there's a lot of good things here. And he's only 120 points, which I was baffled that this guy could be 120, and then you look at what 150 points gets you for some Stormcast heroes, just whatever. So he's good. No doubt that he's not useful. But how good is he, right? Because you have to use Finest Hour to get the plus 3 charge, that means it's inherently a once per game effect. And you have to burn your heroic action, and that means he has to be on the table when you do it, and he has to be near the Cavaliers when they charge in order to take advantage of it. So he's kind of like, he's just all in with this unit, right? So like, wouldn't you rather just have a 90-point Warforger? Am I crazy?
I think that's just a problem with the army in general. Wouldn't you rather have a Warforger?
Yeah. I mean, I think you would. You would rather have a Warforger. I mean, like Paul said, it gets around a lot of the strike last, the fight first activation things. Also, I think plus 3 to charge is actually a pretty good effect, because it lets you like charge. Your opponent can never be sure about your threat ranges. Having longer threat ranges is just good.
Yeah.
If Cavaliers move 10, that's about that. They move like Dracots.
Well, 13 with advance.
Yeah. Well, sure, but we've talked about how good Wild Form is on on our Dracots, or like anything we have that moves that much, or like our Stormstrike Chariots, even if they're not deep striking or teleporting with Lord Relictor. So plus 3 charge, that increases the threat range by a lot.
Yep.
You're effectively talking about like if I assume like an average charge is 8 or 7, you're talking about 11 inches plus 13, 24 inches for a cavalry unit is a huge threat range.
But the problem is to get wild form, you need to bring at least a 100-point wizard on top of that. And then, like, I do like that idea.
I mean,
like, whipping out...
I like this guy because he's tough, too. Like, 7 wounds on a 3-up save for 120, not a high cost of admission. He's going to kill some things. Cavaliers are going to get in, kill some things. I know, Paul, you don't like the flower formation, or I like to call the L's. You just build L's with Cavaliers, and that's how you go, because this is a stupid game. Games Workshop did not give them 2-inch range for whatever reason. But yeah, I think 10 Cavaliers of them would actually do some damage.
Eric Doty in the chat says, at some point we need to acknowledge that Warforgers won't stay 90 points in the same meta.
No, they'll be 110 before you can, like, I bet before next year they're 110, 120.
There's a thing that happens in this game where sometimes units are purposefully overcosted or undercosted because it seems they want to push something as like the identity of the army, like a strength. Like, perfect example, crossbows in Night Haunt were greatly overcosted, and I think it's because they don't want Night Haunt to be a shooting army, right? Some armies pay more for certain things than other armies pay more for those things, right? So you could see a Warforger at 90 and think, oh my god, this is so overpowered. He's a +1 cast wizard. He's got 2 amazing effects. He's so good. You want to bring 2 to every list. It could just be the case that they just want you to bring 2 of him to every single human list, right? That could just be the case. So he is undercosted as an internal balance problem, but not in terms of like an army identity problem or an external balance problem necessarily, because I think this army is actually quite expensive, even with the 90-point Warforger, because you got to pay the Pontifex tax. You got to pay your tithe, you know?
I think he's fine. He's not actually doing that much damage.
He's fine.
Like, he doesn't get a charge bonus. He's doing about the same amount of damage as a foot hero. I think he's fine for 120.
Yeah. The Cavalier Marshal is like... he's going to be like the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak, where even when you bring the units that he combos with, sometimes you just won't bring him anyway. I do like that if he's the general, he can also have a reroll aura if you wanted to skip Master of or Master Ballistics for some reason. But he does unlock Free Guild Cavalier Battle Line, which is good. Yeah, 3d6 charge is probably better, but maybe Wild Form's not reliable enough.
I mean, Magic in this season might get unbound a lot, so like it's about having options. I like the option that this gives you. Plus, it's like sometimes the game comes down to like I literally cannot fail this charge. Even if it's like a 5-inch charge, you might roll like a 4.
Yeah.
Not having that happen is pretty good.
I do like him, and I'm going to keep talking about Living City, but dropping Cavaliers on a flank, using Heroic or Finest Hour with him, and then running him up to range to give them +3 charges out of reserve, that's pretty cool. Because Cavaliers are fragile. They'll get shot off the board pretty easy. Yeah, okay. So he's playable. He's not terrible.
Yep.
He's not the guy on foot. That's for sure.
Definitely not.
All right, Warforger. We were just talking about him. He's so good you bring 2, right? Every list with humans, you bring 2.
Every single list.
Unreal how good he is.
Yeah, his spell is what makes your offense work. The spell must go off at all costs.
Yep.
And then if you have double... then the other guy can do his other amazing effect, which is an aura of +1 save.
Yeah, +1 save with no dice roll.
And it's
whoever designed this hero, my god.
What if Lord Castellan was an aura instead of a pulse on 1 unit? That's what this guy is.
What if he also had curse? But it was a buff on all your units.
Yeah.
The only weakness of this guy is if the spell that you're going to take, which you will probably never cast anyway, would have to be Transmutation of Lead. But that's okay, because all you're going to do is take Merciless Blizzard instead. And that way, if anyone ever gets close to your Fusiliers, this guy's just going to Blizzard them into oblivion.
Yep.
This is a crazy, crazy model. We can argue about whether it's intended to be this cheap or not as part of army identity, but get these guys ASAP.
Yep.
Get 2, and learn to love it.
They probably won't nerf it in the first battle scroll.
No, not yet, because what they'll wait to do is the rest of the army is just so revolved around this dude and the Pontifex. It's just that unless the other units are prepared to come down, this guy can't go up, you know? Like, Fusiliers are only worth 150, the same as Sentinels, because this guy exists.
He's got some big weaknesses, right? Like, because this guy is so central to what the army's trying to do, sniping him out with things like Vexilor banners or spells, or even just finding a way to shoot him, really hurts the army as soon as this guy's dead. And there's no
Mhm.
reviving him. There's no coming
Yeah.
back. Like
There's no bodyguards for him.
no bodyguards. It's a necessary piece to an army, and it's only 5 wounds. So like 2d3 can just swing a little bit high, and it kills him instantly. So, yeah, it's high risk, I guess, or maybe it's like a linchpin thing where your opponent can just kill this, and it's really bad for you after that
It's risky
point.
losing because he is a linchpin, but
Yeah.
you can't you that doesn't matter. Like the upside's so high, you accept the risk exposure because you need him.
Yeah,
You know, that's
hit
all we
6
can say.
The
mortals.
good news is
in addition,
if they do shoot him, you can just shoot back.
unless he's the guy with return fire.
Well, no, that's what you don't do. That's the loop there.
Yeah, the Pontifex gets return fire because ain't nobody shooting the Pontifex.
Mhm.
It's not worth shooting. All right, yeah, Alchemite Warforger S tier, like crazy S tier. It's crazy how good he is.
Yep.
He's so good that he makes the Battle Mage look bad, and the Battle Mage is not bad objectively.
No.
Ignore most of this. The only one you care about is plus 6-inch range, because anytime you want a +1 cast wizard, you just bring the Warforger, right?
Yep.
So Battle Mage, unless you're doing like Wild Form, in which case you don't need the extra range. Yeah, then you get +1. So plus 6-inch range though on most of spells and the spells and the lore spells, very very good. And that's his niche. He casts Ethereal. He casts Wild Form. He casts
Wild Form for
spells.
3d6. You can make one of your things ethereal. I think there's a Pall of Doom that's like 24 inches with the +6.
Yep, shuts off commands
that's
on
like,
that unit.
Shuts off commands. Yeah, it's alright.
Politics very good.
Yeah,
But Ripper Onis for Stormcast.
Yeah.
Adding this in. Yeah.
Yep. Terrible for Stormcast now because we just have a Lord Arcanum who's also a Stormcast hero with Cycle of the Storm and a -1 hit spell, and yeah, the only spells you want to cast with Lord Arcanum are endless spells anyway. So, in cities, he's great, but competes with the Warforger, who's necessary. And he's a 3rd hero slot. Like, your first 3 hero slots ought to be Pontifex, Warforger, Warforger. He's the 4th slot. And that means you're not Battle Regiment anymore. So, yeah.
You can just go Acolytes and Regiment.
Yeah,
Not
that's
a bad
fine.
play.
I think this army can play first or second. If you force this army to go first, it's got such high long-range shooting. If you set it up properly, then I think it's fine.
Actually, this army wants, like, if you want to make this army go first, that's preferable, because then it gets its buffs up for
Mhm.
level target.
Yep, casting out of unbinding range, and they stay up until those heroes are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Foz Protection on a Steam Tank is such a hilarious combo. 2 up Ethereal. Yeah.
5 award, Pontifex.
What Bastillodon's used to be, but the Bastillodon's got a... Well, actually, I think the Bastillodon shoots better than a Steam Tank does now. I think so. D3 +2 with 2 shots versus just 9 damage on Ren 3. Yeah, I think Bastillodons shoot better, but Steam Tanks are ethereal. That's tough to beat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Battle Mage on Griffin. We talked about the Free Guild guy on Griffin being good. I don't think the Battle Mage is good on Griffin because he lacks all the stuff that makes the Free Guild guy so good. The 2 orders, the Free Guild keyword, good melee damage. This guy doesn't have any of that. He's just a 1-spell wizard, and his signature spell isn't very good, right? 18-inch line, 2 up D3 mortals. It's okay. Nothing too special. Like, I don't think there's enough follow-up mortal wounds in this army to really make that worthwhile. Is there ever a case to bring this guy? Like, something like...
I guess keeps up with Cavaliers, maybe, for every turn Wild Form. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's something like you're bringing a Wild Form Battle Mage anyway, and you want to pay 150 points for a Griffin.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I could see.
I don't know. I feel like if the new Lookouts didn't exist, I would agree. But the new Lookouts exists.
Yeah. Will get +1 save. He will get 5 up ward because he's a human, but he's not Free Guild, so he doesn't unlock Cavalier. So you'd have to bring another Free Guild guy, which is not great. Just more expense.
He's awkwardly positioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess this would be a good time to talk about this stupid thing in this book that I hate. If you pick a spell from the lore of Collegiate Arcane, it must be Wild Form. If you take a spell enhancement in this army, which you feasibly could because you have so many wizards and you fill a Warlord battalion pretty easily, you can't ever learn a spell except Wild Form. So you can't bring this guy and have him cast Foz protection ever for any reason.
No, you
Um,
can pick the lore from the Frost lore, but you can't do anything with Lawform other than
Yeah.
Lawform. So,
and that's just bad design, right? Like, why can't I take a spell in hands? Like, why doesn't this say the first spell you pick has to be this? Like, why can't I tech out my army?
because they
more?
didn't think about it that much, man. They were like, a lot of these things they haven't thought about. The Marshal, they clearly haven't thought about what they want him to do. You know,
Yeah,
the Warforger does too much. The Marshal does too little. The Cavalier Marshal does okay amount of things, but he only does them with like this one unit. It just like this army's all over the place, and it's like the only identity it has is the unit we're gonna see pretty soon.
the new stuff has a really good identity. They really did a
Mhm.
good job with most, except for the foot marshal, I think. But most of it really works well together. But okay, so Battle Mage on Griffin, playable? Even? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Don't love
he'd
No.
be but the thing is, yeah, he'd have to be like 220, 230 maybe.
He'd have to be just so cheap that you're just getting a cheap monster, like that kind of cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're getting the monster utility on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the Hurricanum. I guess we can just talk about both, right? Because if you could feasibly bring it without the Battle Mage, but whatever. So the obvious thing that is going to get eroded is this ability: Storm of Shemtek. In the hero phase, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit. Roll dice equal to the battle round. So round 1, you roll 1. Round 2, you roll 2. Round 3, you roll 3. For each 2-up, it's a D3 mortal. The problem here is that it says in the hero phase, which means this activates in both players' turn. And that's just absurdly good. There is also a timing issue here. Same thing that happened with the Terra Wings, where they could scream in the shooting phase. Technically, this could interrupt things that your opponent's doing. Like if you make a casting roll, you could like kill the wizard maybe, and then it can't cast anymore. It gets weird. Like the rules get really weird and unclear about what exactly happens. So at the very least, this is going to need to say at the start of the hero phase or at the end of the hero phase, and it's probably also going to have to say at the start of your hero phase or in your hero phase. Like there's no way this is going to activate twice per round. That's so absurd.
Yeah.
But aside from that, so let's just assume it's once per round in your turn, right? Let's assume that, and evaluate the unit that way. Is it worth bringing? Because the melee attacks.
How many points is this? How many points is this?
That's a fantastic question. Let me bring them up real quick.
270 for the mounted one, and it's 30 for the unmounted one.
Sounds
Yeah,
right.
not worth it. Not worth. Doesn't seem worth it.
No, so that's what I think as well. As soon as the Storm of Shemtek becomes eroded, this thing is not worth it because the storm will basically generally not even activate turn 1, and then
Also, Holy with a 9. Oof, that's bad.
Yeah, that's a bad hit roll thing.
This is when I would just bring a Toleron instead.
Yep.
Of this guy.
Yeah.
So
and
Hurricane, good now, might not be good soon.
Yeah. Twin-tailed Comet's one of the worst lore spells, I think.
Yes.
Bravery 10 is
I guess
okay.
it's good if you want to increase your. The thing is, we thought about like when we were looking at these like pictures, we were like, oh, okay, so you can make the Bravery 10, which means you could combo it with the Marshal's heroic action. Oh no, wait, you can't because that happens at the start of hero phase, and his spell cast would happen in the hero phase.
Yep.
So
heroic
it doesn't
actions
even work with that.
Heroic actions happen before casting, so there's no combo there, which is silly.
Awful.
He's also
they didn't think about older units at all. So.
He's also a hero with Bravery 6, so and I know this probably won't matter, but heroic recovery sucks on him, which is just another point against it, which is weird. He could pump out a lot of mortal wounds every turn, right? Between Chain Lightning or Twin-tailed Comet and Portents or the Storm, it can pump out a good amount of mortal wounds. It's just not worth the cost. You could just bring 2 battle mages and do better things, I assume.
Yep, I agree.
And the spells exist. You should.
Thing
use
is,
them.
the thing is, this is what strikes me as weird. The only time you would bring a so here's the thing, right? This army used to be Cities of Sigmar used to very much be a shooting spam army. If you look at any of like Gavin Grigor's lists, or like you used to bring big blocks of infantry and then you just surrounded them by a Celestial Hurricanum. You surrounded a bunch of crossbows with a Celestial Hurricanum. Unless you're bringing min squads of Fusiliers, which I'm not sure why you would want to do, but I guess if you want to do it, you could with something like this. Cities of Sigmar is no longer that same army. That's just like a bunch of different blocks that all need, +1 to hit. So like, I don't know why it kept this design. They clearly did not design this with how the new Cities of Sigmar army, how that army works. That's my opinion.
This shouldn't be limited to human. That's for sure. Right.
Yeah.
This should have
Yeah.
been the piece that ties the elf and dwarves and all that stuff together. This is, yeah, I don't like this. Toralon's just better, I think. It's not like it's irredeemably bad, but it's just overcosted, I guess.
Yeah, 270. Like I would bring Aventus or something,
Same
or
cost.
Toleron.
Yeah.
Toleron probably is better in my opinion. Yeah.
Now let's assume Storm of Shemtek is the way it is, and this is intentional. Both hero phases in the round. Is every list just 4 of these?
At least 2 in that case,
Yeah.
right? Because then you're effectively dropping comets on them in a way.
Yeah, you're dropping
You're
comments on their
because
turn.
this is an ability. This is not a shooting attack. So you could get past Lookouts there and just kill foot heroes.
Yeah. And if you keep them in reserve until bottom of round 1, you drop them into play from Living City. Top of round 2, 2d3 to something, 4d3 to something, 6d3 if you have 3 of these guys. Like,
Yeah, it becomes a very build centralizing thing if this stays as it is. Unfortunately, I don't really want this to stay as it is for that reason, because it just becomes a game of, hey, I've got these 3 Hurricaneums. If you can kill them by turn 3, you probably win. But if you don't,
I feel like it has to get errata because it's gonna create annoying games, like where it's just gonna be okay, my heroes are dead. Like, it's not gonna be fun to go play against them.
It won't be fun. It's got internal balance problems where this just starts to drown out everything. Like, okay, it would compete with Warforger. Great, something that competes with Warforger, but not in a good way, you know? Yeah, so, okay, Hurricanum will get eroded and then probably won't be getting any play. How about the Luminarch? See, this is pretty much what the Hurricanum is. It's a fair version of Hurricanum. Is there use for it? Like, is the Living City laser show just a meme, or is it actually a real thing, you know?
What's the range on it? 18?
30.
30? I could. It's pretty expensive from what I remember. Luminarch's like 270, isn't it?
I believe Unmounted is 220 now.
Yeah,
I could see like 2 of these in a list, and because it picks a point, right, on the battlefield.
Correct. Well,
Yeah,
it's not a pulse; it's a line.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's a line. So you could run 2 of these, and you get past Lookouts there that way. You get snipe all the heroes with 2 of these.
And
snipe all the 5.
This does work when you use Unleash Hell too, which is hilarious.
Yes, it is a missile weapon. Yep.
So, and like, you don't have to target unit that charged you. It's like, oh, you charged me? Okay, I'm gonna blast all your support heroes again. So,
yeah,
I actually think...
you just put. This is playable, like in a weird way, but it is playable.
That 6-up ward is useless, right?
Yeah.
It's so bad.
This will be like a techie inclusion if the Hurricanum gets eroded. This is not an auto include, but it'll be a techie utility piece for lists that want to invest in hero sniping if the meta goes in that direction.
Yeah, it's like a C tier. It's not bad. Maybe it could be cheaper.
Wait, so it moves how much? It moves
8.
It moves
8 plus 30, so 38 potentially.
The problem
I don't know. What?
It hurts your own models too, so you better not have
anything
in front
I'll
of
just
it.
have this at the front. I'll just have this at the front. Who cares? This is like I'll put this in like a Stormcast army with some Vexillers.
Yeah, you could, because it's not a leader.
It's like a free Everblaze Comet every turn. But in a line.
Probably worse, but yeah. I like it for the Living City thing. You just like drop 1 on each side and just crisscross laser beams, and the opponent's entire army takes D3 mortal wounds. Why not? Or 2d3, I guess, if you bring 2. It's not the worst thing in the world. Alright, Command Core. S tier, right? Human builds are good.
Yeah.
These guys...
Yep.
These guys
it's like Catacross. Catacross is like little entourage.
Yeah.
It heals. It disrupts enemy commands.
Yep.
It adds +1 to charge rolls, or like retreat rolls, or whatever the hell. And one more thing, I'm missing something.
Makes you battle shock way less.
Yes. Has a lot of things in the game are like you can't use Inspiring Presence. It says, okay, I'll make half the models flee on average, and it's got an Arch Knight for some damage. Or he's like the first model to die, probably.
Yeah, they've got an Arch Knight and a Gargoylian for a Blade of Wounds.
And it's 15 wounds on a 4-up. It's not the worst thing.
Yeah, it'll probably be on a 3-up, let's be honest, but yeah.
Usually 3-up, usually with a 5-up board, yeah.
Yep.
This is great.
This is really good.
There's a few things worth noting here, like the damage, whatever, doesn't matter, right? You're not bringing it for its damage. 3d3 revive or healing. heals up everything from Hollow Heart that all the mortal wounds you just took. It just heals them all at the end of the phase. You're taking chip mortal wounds, heals them all at the end of the hero phase. If you lose a bunch of Fusiliers, well, this doesn't say different units, so you can just pump 3d3 revive into the same unit of Fusiliers.
Yep.
The Whisper Blade, though, I think is secretly the best part of this, because
It's unreal.
opponent fails a charge, 4 up, you can't re-roll it. And they've wasted the command point, right? Like,
Yep.
so good. I want Inspiring Presence, 4 up, no you don't. I want to Rally, 4 up, no you don't, because it's a new turn. Just like...
Yeah, the thing about the Whisper Blade is the stuff you're mentioning is so good, but that's the low end.
Yeah.
Like, stopping a key all-out defense or stopping a key, like, whatever, is the low end. The high end is, hey, you want to use Mighty Destroyers turn 1 Iron Jaws? No, you don't.
Okay.
Hey, Feck, you want to summon 20 Beast Flayers?
Yeah.
No, you don't. And by the way, you can never try that again. So you just don't get your
Yeah.
Beast Flayers.
Catacross is
Morgoth.
using his thing. Nope, not this turn.
Nope, nothing. And this happens in both turns. And it's so strong. There's no range on it. Sawbones is the army's recursion. 3d3 on the same unit is exceptional. I've seen lists that run 2 of these.
So
Because
Morgonk, this army has high range, powerful volume shooting and recursion. Does this not have 2 of the 3 criteria we need for an S tier army?
I think I said magic, recursion, and summoning.
Okay. Recursion and summoning, you can call it the same thing. You can call it sustain, right?
I mean, yeah, in my opinion, this is better Lumineth in a way. It doesn't
yeah.
have the same magic defensive tech list, but I think it just the shooting is better than Lumineth shooting.
correct.
So, is this 5 models or 6 models?
It's 5 models, but
No, it's 6.
because the gargoyle, yeah.
Arch Knight, Whisper Blade, Great Herald, Surgeon, Shepherd, Gargoylian. Okay, the Gargoylian's not... Is that a real model?
Yeah.
It has a wound characteristic. It has a combat.
Okay, so it'll be 18 wounds then on a 4 up, not 15. That's even better.
This costs 170.
And you can revive models from this unit because it has the human keyword. So if your opponent starts chipping this down, you just start reviving itself. It's so stupid. Just
this army,
like Frog said, you could have 2 of these and one revives the other.
Yeah.
I honestly think 2 of these is a legitimate build. You're getting 6 D3 recursion in your hero phase, and you have 2 different Whisper Blade procs every turn. Then, like, it's such an I don't use this term a lot, but like if you want to say NPV, it's horrible. Like your opponent's gonna have so much influence over your command point usage, and that's on top of other stuff in this army like Pall of Doom, which just turns off commands. Dark Riders and the Dark Elf, which on a 5 up does the same thing, turns off commands. This army can exert a lot of command pressure, and it's on top of all this other stuff that this Warscroll is doing. S tier unit.
This is S tier unit. My only pet peeve with this is like it's just very unthematic because no one's gonna take the Marshal and people are gonna take 2 of these. It's like they're a command squad that doesn't have a commander that they're helping out. It's just goddamn what a flavor fit.
Should an army, like narratively speaking, in terms of identity and flavor and all that, should Cities of Sigmar have this much sustain? Probably not, right? Like, you should probably have to split this across 3 different units. It probably shouldn't be usable on a single unit.
Yes, I agree, but from a gameplay perspective, it's kind of propping them up just because.
I also think this should probably be like a unique thing, or like you need to take a Marshal to take this. Like this should not be able. You should not be able to take this on its own without a Marshal.
If this and the Marshal were a single unit for like 360, that would be a lot. Or not 360, 260. Sorry, not 360. But like 260, that's a lot more fair.
Now I would say like if you increase the cost of this unit to 200 and make the Marshal part of it just automatically, it makes it fine.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's fair.
Make the Marshal 200 points, and when you bring the Marshal at the start of the game, he summons one of these.
Yes, you put a command squad into it.
That would make him worthwhile. That's for sure.
Yeah.
As it stands, if you want to get into Cities of Sigmar, your first 2 purchases for this army are going to be the Pontifex and this squad.
Yeah.
These are the most important things, and then you get a bunch of Warforgers.
If Cities of Sigmar ends up being too powerful of an army, I think this Warscroll is the first thing you hit. And it's not, and points could work. If you make these guys 240, like a 70-point hike, that could work, right? But I think the way to nerf this is first off, Sawbones. That recursion is very good. And when you stack that on top of Fusiliers and their +1 save,
Oh.
sometimes +2, sometimes +3, and a 5
Yeah.
up ward, and halving battle shock results. Like, this pushes them over the edge, I think. So if Cities is overpowered, and I'm not convinced it will be, but if it is, this Sawbones is the first thing that needs to change.
It won't be overpowered. It'll just be very annoying to deal with because
Yeah.
the thing is, like, this army, like, you could probably realistically shoot these models off the board. Like, it is possible. The problem is return fire exists.
Hmm.
So when you manage to not shoot these models off the board because they have a 3-up save with the Warforger and a 5-up ward, the 20 Fusiliers, the 30 Fusiliers are gonna fire back at you.
Hmm.
That's the issue.
Yeah, it's tough. To
Dispatch
risk reward.
Dispatch Spies should be 1 Whisper Blade in your army per turn can use this ability, and honestly, maybe it should be a 5-up. 4-up feels a little too reliable for how powerful that is. But again, I don't know if this army needs to be nerfed, but if it needs to be nerfed, Sawbones and Spies, that's where you start.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Next one, Steel Helms. They're a cheap screen, they're battle line, and they make Fusiliers battle line, right? There's nothing else to say about them.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, they just sort of passively scale with all the buffs in your army that you would include anyway.
Yeah.
They just kind of like soak them up. You're not, so they get better with what you're doing anyway. They're well designed in that sense. Like the new human elements are very cohesive. They're very cohesive from a design perspective.
Yeah. Hold the line is like another unit is getting all out defense. Okay, the Steel Helms also get it. Why not? Who cares?
Yeah. This unit's fine. Like they're there to screen. They will be your screen. That's what there's to say. The spicy pick would be, would you ever do a build where you just try to do 20 Steel Helm blocks and try to abuse the ward and Sawbones to waste your opponent's time? Not sure. They do.
You could.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of cheap. They're only 100 points, so you could do a lot of attacks and try to get mortal wounds off with the Warforger.
Yeah, they do mortal wounds if that goes off, right? So they all of a sudden it's like, wow, these are like wardens, but with recursion potential.
Mm-hmm.
I could see someone trying to hammer Hallgyra that way. Yeah.
Yep. So I think these guys are they're the workhorse of the army. There's nothing fancy, but they scale very well with stuff it's already in your list. It's good to have a few squads of these guys.
Well, you need to bring one to make Fusiliers battle line so you can double reinforce them. So
correct.
If you're playing humans, you got at
they're
least
a good
one.
screen.
Yeah.
They're a good screen. Yeah.
It's kind of annoying that they created a new model for a unit and all it does is die.
What I really don't understand, and like this irks the hell out of me. They could have just said while this is on an objective,
yeah,
it has a 6-up ward.
Or while this unit's contesting an objective, human units have a 6-up ward while contesting that objective. Why is it a dice roll?
Why is it a dice roll? You have to see if it's consecrated. You have to see if your opponent took it or not. Like, why? This is like whoever like. This is what I mean. There's 2 different people working on this helm. One of these wrote the Blaze of Glory ability from Stormcast 2-3 years ago. All this text is so goddamn useless. This person needs to be fired.
This is like it's wasting people's
imagine
time.
Reading this. Yeah, just wasting people's time reading this. Just say if this is on an objective, human units have a 6-up ward on that objective. Boom. Yeah. 6-up wards are not that impactful, guys. We don't need to like read like 15 lines for it to make sense. I don't know who does this.
Yeah, I hate this design. Wastes everybody's time. It's unnecessary bookkeeping. It's weak. It's random. Everything that can be bad about an ability is present.
Yeah, hard to understand. Just weak effect and just awful.
Yep.
Fire this person, please.
Yeah.
Or move them somewhere else.
Despite that, Steel Helms are S tier. You're going to bring one in every list if you're playing humans, right? So
sounds right.
Yeah. Cavaliers.
Just as a quick note, yep. I probably have to drop out at 10:45ish.
Okay. Maybe we do a speed run here then.
Should give me time to cover the rest of the free guild. Which
okay.
Well, I just want to cover the humans. I might have to drop after that.
Fair.
Oh no.
All right, maybe we do a part 2 sometime, or save it for the full book review. Cavaliers.
I can speed run the elves. I can tell you all about the elves.
Cavaliers are good. Cavaliers are good melee hammers, guys.
Yep.
For 180 points, you're at least gonna want 2 units of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They hit like Blood Knights. Blood Knights cost 230. They don't have the same durability, but they have 10 different buffs available. They are a trading unit. Cavs are good.
Yep, you need them for a battle tactic too. You need to contest
the fact
things.
Is that their low wounds is actually good, because if they were 3, the Surgeon's Revive would not be as good.
Yes.
What kind of cope is that? Because you could just pick
a little bit of copium there, but
it's okay that they have. It's okay that they have less stats. That's fine. No,
I'm okay with it, like, because it means like the surgeon can revive them. I'm okay with it's fine. They're just human cav, you know. They're like Dawn Riders. They're
but
just
if they had more wounds, less of them would be dead in the first place.
Don't use that logic.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, it's actually
right.
a good thing we got 2 wounds, so let's wrap it on there.
All right, Fusiliers.
Yeah.
Fusiliers are S tier, right? You
S
bring a
tier,
squad
yeah.
of 30 or 20, return fire,
You bring
5
2 squads of
upward.
20, 1 squad of 30. You're always
Yeah,
gonna
that's it.
start your list with some Fusiliers. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, these guys just destroy every other shooting unit. The army is based around these guys.
And why is that? It's because of the command trait that allows you to give them +1 to wound when they're shooting, as well as +1
10
hit
mortal
with attack.
wounds. It turns them into Lumineth.
And the hit 6
Yep.
mortals. Yep, they're remember how ridiculous Bliss Barbs were at 150? They were 22 shots per squad for 150 points. These guys are the same number of shots, and you can get their accuracy to 3s and hit 6 mortals in addition. So they're Bliss Barb archers. You play them differently. They have to stay still or have very controlled
Well,
movements.
no, they don't have to stay still because you have orders for that.
Yeah,
they're basically ethereal. These guys are going to be against other counter battery shooting. They're going to be on a 3-up ethereal save.
Cities is the anti-shooting army.
Yes,
Yeah.
you cannot shoot these guys whatsoever. They are 3-up and rendable. They shoot you back, and then all the other shooting.
Whatever little you kill, the surgeons will heal.
They just bring 3d3 back. So this just destroys like Slanesh. I don't know what Slanesh does in the cities.
Plays a different army.
Yeah, play a different army.
Yeah, this kills bow snakes. This kills Slanesh. Stormcast, maybe not, depending on how, because we have some melee we could use.
Stormcast can build to beat cities, but yes, there are
Yeah.
Stormcast builds that would have trouble.
It's very risky to shoot anything in the main castle, but thankfully, that's actually one of the weaknesses of this army is you can't play as a single castle. You have to have flanks. You have to contest objectives. You have to be on the sides of the table this season, especially with battle tactics. You can't just run up the board as a death ball. If you try to do that, you'll lose on tactics, and if you don't do it, then you'll get picked off. So it's one of the balancing points for this army, and I think it's fine. It's a good identity to have, right? To be the castle shooting army.
Yep, that's totally fine.
Yeah. Cool
Cool models. I'm glad they exist. I will not relish painting them, but
yeah, too much detail. All right, let's talk Fusil Major. I overlooked him at first. He's actually really good because he's free guild. He makes Cavaliers battle line. Crackshot is fine, right? Rangefinder is fine. He's just like a good person to make your general to issue that +1/+1 onto the Fusiliers.
Yep.
Good defensive profile, 8 wounds, 3 up. You know, like there's nothing he does that's exceptionally good. But he ends up being a good choice.
I like him because the thing is we talk about threat ranges a lot. When we say Cavalos Death Riders, stay outside of 25 inches or whatever because that's their threat range. This guy effectively makes your Fusiliers with that +3 move. So 8 + 24, 32. He can, your range could be like 33 inches with Fusiliers.
Yeah, and you give the scope to him, and then all of them are +3 range as well. So
yeah. So your opponent has to always factor in that you could roll a 5 or 6 on this, and their range is just massive, and they have to position that accordingly. And dictating your opponent's positioning that way is excellent. Plus, he's tough. He can't be shot because companions don't count as mounts. So he has super lookout, sir. He's 8 wounds on a 3-up ethereal save because he has fortified positions against other shooting.
That's another good thing about him. His fortified position doesn't matter. It's just a defensive bonus, as opposed to every other unit with fortified position. It's also an offensive bonus. So yeah, this
Crackshot is interesting.
Breaking coherency.
You can knock some things out of coherency.
Really strong. You can break coherency. You can pick out the wizards and Lumineth units. You can pick out standard bearers. For your grand strat, which is the best grand strat. This guy, I hated him at first, but as he's a guy, as you think about him more, you're like, oh, I see.
He does quite a bit.
Yeah, this guy, and he's 150.
He's a reasonable cost, yeah.
He's a reason. You should definitely think about this guy.
He's worth swapping out a squad of 10 Fusiliers for him.
Yes.
But not a 20. Like, you want to bring him and Fusiliers. So he's the 4th hero you bring, usually.
Yes.
Great Cannons.
No.
Fusiliers are
Great
better.
Cannons, better, yes. Fusiliers...
There's an argument for Great Cannons.
I don't think you would ever bring more than 1 or 2. That's the thing. Don't bring 3 of those because Great Cannons just don't do as much damage as Fusiliers. Now, there is an argument to be made that if you they have a bit of redundancy in the way that if you lack, Fusiliers don't have, they only have -1 rend, and you might not get that blazing weapon spell off that gives them more wounds on 6s. In that sense, Great Cannons sort of become better.
Mhm.
But at the same time, and this is probably with like a similar Iron Blaster's profile. I could see this running, someone running this with a Lord Ordinator in Stormcast.
Yeah,
But
they're okay. Like they're a good second or third target if you're taking Greywater.
Yeah, I could see this as a conditional take in Greywater, but for all the big Ren numbers, like Ren 4, right? Once you actually math this thing out, it's not very impressive.
No.
Even if you take away the Fusilier angle, which is, let's pretend Fusiliers didn't exist. Would I take this? If there was no other shooting in the army, I don't know. Maybe, but the math isn't there for me. It compromises your drops because it's a behemoth slot.
I would bring one of these for that slot. That's it.
You could. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I just don't.
Because I just it's like a niche of like, it's a distraction Carnifex, right? So they can't necessarily ignore this. B, -2 D3 plus 2 damage could roll on average like 8 damage on something and just kill it, and then that means your Fusiliers are free to shoot something else. You don't have to invest like all 40 shots into something.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I could see this in Ordinator's good with it, but you're not going to have a Lord Ordinator in your cities.
Oh no, not in cities. I'm just saying if I could ally this
wants
one.
it. Yeah, I don't know. Does Stormkeep want it? You guys tell me. Do you guys want it?
No.
Okay.
4s and 2s kills it. The 4s and 2s kind of is weird.
Sorry, James, what was that?
I was just saying, can't say I wanted in a Stormkeep list.
You know what I'd rather have? 2 gyrocopters. Unironically, I'd rather have 2 gyrocopters.
This is a really weird unit because the strength of the Iron Blaster also is that it moves such a long distance and it doesn't have this fortified crap attached to it.
Yeah, the fortified is a nerf here. Yeah.
Yeah, so in my opinion, this would see play if this went down 10 and the Fusiliers went up 10, because the Fusiliers are like the backbone of this army.
Yeah.
So if Fusiliers went to 160 and this went to 140, I would consider this then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. Let's move on. Almost on the human stuff. Steam tanks. We can just talk about both of them, right?
Yep.
Commander's good.
Foz protection is good. Steam tanks are a 2-up save. Their shooting is comparable to a cannon, right? 2 shots, force 2s, rend 2, D3 plus 2.
Yep. Close.
Then they get all those guns. So more expensive, faster. It's a cannon that has a 2-up ethereal. Like you bring a battle mage, like it's fine. It's playable. Yeah.
This stuff is playable now. Like the steam tank used to be like the most venerated meme list of cities.
Mm-hmm.
But this stuff is playable, especially in the context of, because it's a human, right?
Yep.
So all the buffs that humans can get, these things can get.
I actually quite like this. Like I would actually. That's what I was gonna say. Instead of a cannon, because the cannon doesn't seem worth it for this point, you bring a steam tank. And then you throw that steam tank with fast protection in your opponent's face, and while they're busy dealing with it, Fusiliers just shoot them dead.
It's also not even the worst melee damage either. So when you're running and shooting and charging, the charge actually matters because you want to tie stuff down with your ethereal. So like, yeah, it's not bad at all. Something like a B or C tier unit, like it's not your first pick, it's not even your second pick, but it's like, if it's your flavor pick and you really like these units, it's a good unit.
Yep.
Yeah, the run, shoot, and charge is pretty good. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. Okay. Wilder Core Hunters. That's how you say that, right? So they really do compete with Fusiliers because they're both made battle line by steel helms being in your army. These guys are not the same damage output because we're talking when we build Fusiliers, we're talking hit 6 mortals in addition, +1/+1. These guys don't do that same level of damage when they're reinforced. They're not as durable, so like they serve a different role. What these guys you want them doing is playing the flanks, right? You want this unit on the side where your opponent can't shoot at it. It can just sit there and score objectives every turn because it's not visible. Or while it's in cover, it's just not visible at all. So like enemies have to engage it in melee. And that's a fine niche to have. But I'm wondering if 140 points ends up being too much for that. Because can't cities ally in Seraphon? Or am I mistaken?
I think they lost that.
Damn.
But yeah, like I see the niche for these guys. This is a good points. Like this is a good for playing the mission and playing the battle tactics.
Mm-hmm.
140 points probably puts them out of contention. This won't be in your 1-drop list. Maybe in your go wide list, you can take a one of these guys.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you could, if all you won't really care about is going to the board edge, you could do Tree Revenants, stuff like that. Like there's allies you could use.
Yeah, they really needed Deep Strike, in my opinion.
Yeah, this Warscroll almost gets there. Like it's close. It's close.
It's playable, but niche. That's where I'm at with it.
I think that characterizes it. Yes.
I would just, instead of this, if I wanted battle tactics, I would run Vanguard Hunters for 100.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, very, very true, for sure.
The only thing is they have some decent shooting, so they can add some more shots if you really needed some shooting density. But even then, it's a hard sell at 140. Maybe 120 is a good cost for them.
Vanguard Hunters are also 2 shots, force, rend 1.
Yeah, no, but it's the crossbow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that crossbow.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that they can't be seen is relevant, so you can't just shoot them once they're on terrain.
Yeah, because if you give your opponent nothing to shoot at except your castle, and you have return fire locked and loaded, that's not a good situation for that person, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
I like these guys playing the flanks, because if you give me something on the side contesting an objective, I'm going to shoot that every time. I'm not going to risk the return fire.
All right, I got to drop. I'll see you guys later.
Cool. See you, dude.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.
All right, Frog, how much time we got?
I can let me think. Like, so how do you want to do this? Because we could break it up.
Speed run.
I can speed run.
Okay.
It. I'm ready.
Hexbane, good or bad?
The one Phoenicium player who gets good results with cities but only plays Phoenicium says they're good.
Okay.
No one knows how to play his Phoenicium list but that individual person. So for the average player, you can ignore this.
I know him. I've seen him on interviews. He's a great player. So not objectively bad, but we're maybe it'll come up as a sleeper. Okay.
Finesse tier, sleeper finesse tier.
Okay. Vendence. My take is too expensive. They can't shoot heroes.
That's true. They are a cost-efficient source of orders, but that's really all they do. It says something about the game that 80-point foot heroes with a 5-up ward and potential damage 4 against the right targets don't make the cut. But they don't do anything that the army wants to do. They're just kind of independent operatives. They do give orders, but they're not Warforgers. They're not a battle mage casting Pall of Doom. Hard to give them hero slots, I would say.
Hard to give them all out attack too, even if you are shooting a bigger monster. Yeah, they're tough. And dispelling in the spells isn't worth this much, so I wouldn't.
Yep.
All right. Dwardens. This is just all a package, right? Warden King, he always goes with all the stuff. Rune Lord is a lot worse. Long beards are pointless, right? There's just no reason to bring long beards. Yeah, okay, because they're just Iron Beards tank better, Hammerers hit better. Why bring long beards?
So yeah, let's characterize dwarfs as a whole here. I think we can do that.
We'll finish off on this slide.
Yeah. So what's wrong? What's up with dwarfs? Are they better than they used to be?
Yes.
I know there's a lot of dwarf players out there. Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
But are they? They're the worst part of this book of the 3 factions. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
If they came out as their own Battletome, people would play this army and have success with it. But because it's competing with elves and humans in the same book, people are just going to ignore it.
Yeah, so let's talk about Ironbreakers. They are a great wall in theory, but their 4-up ward only turns on if you have the order issued and if they're in the opponent's combat phase.
Yes.
So any hero phase, mortal wounds, any shooting just picks them up. Hammerers. These guys are actually good.
Yes, especially in Misthaven.
They are good. These guys are like Grand Slammers, but they actually do more damage.
Yep.
And they cost less. Now, this is mitigated by the fact that they move very slow, but Misthaven fixes that. The 3-inch move fixes that. This is actually a good unit if all you care about is output that doesn't require dwarf-specific support.
Yep. These guys are better than Executioners because they don't need as much support, right? Like,
I think so.
If you could only pick one, I'd pick Hammerers.
I agree. Hammers are legit good. And then lastly, Iron Drakes. These guys are in the bin. I don't know what sins these guys have committed. They're so bad compared to Fusiliers. They don't retain. They cannot move or be set up without losing their double shot. Unlike Fusiliers, they have they're a shooting unit with low range. They don't return fire.
What really kills it for me is that the Rune Lord used to give them bonus rend, and he doesn't do that anymore.
Doesn't even do that anymore.
It's just melee now.
Yeah. So dwarfs, dwarfs on the whole,
not great.
Not great. Again, the ward, you can say 4-up ward, but it's very, very limited. And of these Warscrolls, to me, only Hammerers make the cut. I know I'll talk about Gyrocopters as well. Probably a niche for them. They are fast. They shoot relatively well for their cost.
Cogsmith's not
dwarf-
worth talking about, right? We can
No,
skip
I'm just
okay.
skipping him.
All right.
Yeah, the Gyro Bomber is also outcompeted by the Gyrocopter, I think.
Yes,
Rather-
because it
yeah.
costs 50% more, but it doesn't do 50% more. So if you don't care about drops, you just get as many gyrocopters as possible. They're great for battle tactics. They contribute 3d3 shooting every turn. It adds up. It really does. And Stormcast in particular have a battle tactic that could use cities units to contest enemy objectives. So 80 points. It competes with Aether Wings. And wouldn't you like your Aether Wings to have 3d3 shooting?
Done. Yeah. I like gyros. They're fast-ish. They can do the battle tactics where you have to move.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against gyros. So there are good things for dwarf players to be happy about. Overall, still the weakest of the three branches.
Yeah.
But there are some gems in this mountain, hidden within this mountain.
I would watch out for when gyro bombers go down to 100 points. That's going to be an interesting day.
Yep, I agree with that.
All right, elves. Sorceress on Black Dragon, not worth playing. 5 up save.
Her one gimmick is, hey, I could issue rally to 2 different squads of Blackguard, but she's a 5 up save dragon. She's a once per game relic you can give her that makes her untargetable without 12. That buys her a turn of life. But you're just taking the sorceress on foot. I think this is
How useful is that life? Not very.
Not very. The Black Dragon is a very unimpressive melee profile compared to the Griffin.
Sorceress on foot, I actually really like. 100-point wizard, +2 cast if you bring any battle line for her to eat every turn. And her spell is good. D3 mortal wounds and -1 hit. And you can teach her -1 to wound. So if she's locust focus, she slaps a unit with -1/-1. Great.
If you are playing a Dark Elf build, you will have multiple sorceresses. They cast. If you're playing 75%, 25% human Dark Elf split, which I think has to play, you're going to have your sorceress will be your Dark Elf hero for the sake of orders, and she casts Tenebril Blades. In a nutshell, before we go any farther, the whole elf thing revolves around Tenebril Blades. That spell is insane.
Rend Infinity.
So it's old. It's what Anvil Guard used to have, Vitriolic Spray, but instead of targeting your opponent, it targets your own friendly unit and gives them Rend Infinity.
Yep.
So all the Dark Elf stuff is based around who can leverage that. And speaking of who can leverage that, that brings us to Blackguard.
Blackguard sure are interesting. 4 up ward on 10 wounds, I should say, for 140 points, and battle line if the sorceress is your general. I just can't get over that. The sorceress has to be the general. That means you don't have Master of Ballistics. And I don't like that.
Yep, that's true. Again, so these are Phoenix Guard that cost 30 points less and have the requirement that the ward is conditional upon the sorceress being near them. That's annoying in some ways. But the upside is that, unlike Phoenix Guard, these guys have that crazy upside where they can get Tenebril Blades, and now all of a sudden this very durable, cost-efficient anvil is also now a hammer.
Yeah. 10, even if it's only 20 attacks on 3/3s. Rend Infinity, though, that's good.
Yep. Yeah, this is Blackguard are a good unit. They're one of the cornerstones of what makes elves good. Again, I think we talked about a point earlier, like, well, there's stuff that can turn off wards in the meta. That's true. There are popular armies that can turn off wards, but the thing is, these guys are 140 points.
Yeah.
You're not over investing, and if you can draw your opponent's like Blood Vampire Lord to come and kill these guys in range of your 30 Fusils, we'll take that trade.
And I love that spell gets through ethereal saves like the Vampire Lord, because it changes the characteristic and not the save roll. So
yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, these guys are good enough that elves are playable.
Yep. These guys are a big part of why elves are playable.
But humans are better.
Moving right along.
Bleak Swords, whatever. Like Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, Dark Shards, we don't have to talk about those. They're just cheap battle line. Who cares?
Yep, Dark Shards are pretty bin. Executioners, these guys are playable.
Yeah.
Good damage. They're competing with hammers for the same job. These guys, because they have they have Rend, they have good damage, and they do mortal wounds, right? They're not the best recipient of Tenebril Blades in terms of efficiency. But these guys are fine.
They're huge damage. They're literally double the damage, max damage of Blackguard. So if you're playing, I think the only time you use them if you're playing an all elf build, though.
Agreed. These will never take if you're playing the 75% 25% split, that 25% is always going to be Blackguard, more or less. But the executioners in an elf heavy build, they have a role.
Yeah.
No question about that.
You know my problem with that 25 split is that you could have Cavaliers instead. And they just seem really tactically useful to have that.
Yeah. Again, like this, we'll have to see. I don't know yet. I think like the elf stuff is good. just because of the threat of Tenebrable Blades gives you an out against some things that would stop you otherwise. But it depends. Like we'll have to. It's just a question of is building for that additional out worth compromising some of your buff stacking when it could be on Cavaliers. I don't know the answer to that yet, but that's the question.
Yeah, we'll find out. It'll be fun.
We'll find out.
Dark Shards, Dread Spears, nope. Dreadlord on Black Dragon, nope. But maybe there's something there, but probably nope.
Probably no. The dragon is quite a weak weak monster. This guy really doesn't do anything I want.
He's a beat stick.
He's a beat stick, but the Griffin is the better beat stick.
Yeah,
that's it. I would, even if I was playing Dark Elf army, I'd just take the Griffin. To be totally honest.
I agree. Hydra doesn't look very impressive, but I do like being able to heal 5 wounds every combat phase, even if it didn't fight, even if it's not in combat. It just heals 5 all the time.
Yeah, and this guy's fairly economic. He's also an elf unit, so he can receive all the elf orders. He contributes to the elf battle tactics. This guy wouldn't be my first choice of the elf monsters. He would be my second choice because there's only 2.
Yeah.
But I don't think this guy's like in the bin.
No, he's not F tier, but he's probably D tier. He's going to be cheap enough at one point that he'll see play. Like 130 probably would get him in.
Yep, I think that's fair.
Chariots and Knights. Knights are good, right? Knights seem good. Yeah. Good damage on the charge.
And they're quite tanky.
Yep. Give them Hoarfrost. 4 up to wound doesn't matter anymore. And Rend Infinity. So
Drakespawn Knights are good. Drakespawn Chariots are capable of doing some obscene mortal wound output. But it requires that you have. It's very hard to set up because you need to have Drakespawn Knights already in combat with that target unit, and you're spending reinforcement points to max out the squad of this unit, which can only be size 1 or size 3, never size 2. And this is a unit of massive bases. I think they're on like 120 by 90s. These are very unwieldy to maneuver around the board. So this is the unit that on its face seems to have favorable math, but in context of the army ends up being a little bit awkward.
If you have any amount of terrain on the board, it gets real awkward.
Yeah, it's a big rip. Yeah. So don't love, not so hot on Drakespawn Chariots. Drakespawn Knights, I like.
Yep, Knights are great. I wish they were back to being 110 points because Stormcast were using them as fast screens, and it sucks that we can't do that anymore. But hey, at least they're playable in their own army now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dark Riders.
I have no idea what these are for. The 5-up command ignore.
Yeah, these are a utility pick. If you really just want to choke out your opponent on command points in conjunction with Paul of Doom and the command squad. They're fast. So they'll go 17 with the move order. They can get to the board edge for surround and destroy. They're an elf unit that's fast, so they can do the 3 elf charge battle tactic. This is a utility include. There's nothing impressive on their output on the Warscroll. It's going to depend how much you value the increased command point pressure and just using them as, I have 150 spare points. I'll take Dark Riders to do some battle tactics, maybe.
I'd rather just bring more Drakespawn Knights, I think. Right? I can't see a reason for it.
Sounds fair.
Assassin. He has Hidden Murderer, which is Lookout Sir, but worse.
Yeah, this guy is, I don't know. He's the melee elf hero, so that's his niche. Is you need someone who's going to issue elf orders.
Yeah.
But this guy is.
Is he going to make it in though?
No, he's not. This guy's not very good.
No.
No. Yeah, that's the issue with elves. Is the elves there's a much better elf foot hero who we're going to encounter soon.
The Fleetmaster.
Yes, and this guy is not him.
Yep. All right, let's talk Fleetmaster then. You bring the Fleetmaster because you want to bring Corsairs, because Corsairs have 4 attacks per model in squads of 10, and you Hoarfrost them and give them Rend Infinity, and they just do all the damage in the world.
Yeah, we can talk about these 2 guys together. So Black Ark Corsairs are quietly a very good unit. They are very economic. This is a 90-point unit that can get 4 attacks with their Vicious Blades. Can absorb Tenebrable Blades to make Rend Infinity, can absorb Hoarfrost, so you have multiple chances to buff them. The other good thing they do is they have skilled swashbucklers, which means when people come to kill them, for every hit roll of 1, they take a mortal wound back. So these guys will trade, except very, very well. Given the cost that 20 of them only cost 180 points. 20 of them with Tenebrable Blades and the Fleetmaster's buff will do 27 damage to any save type. and then when they come and get killed, they do mortal wounds and trade out.
Yeah, and if they get shot, you can return fire, right? Because return fire doesn't require a human to be shot. It's any unit that gets shot. So okay.
Yes. the Corsairs, I think we kind of all overlooked them, but then someone posted the math and we're like, oh, whoa, what is going on here? Like, these guys are cheap as chips.
Yeah, it's a
crazy output.
It's a Misthaven build or Hallow Heart just to make sure the spells go off. It's so specific, but they're not unplayable. There's a lot of units in a game like that. They need all the buffs in the world, and they have the potential. The question is, does the potential get realized, or is there just better things that are less risky and more reliable that you can do? That's always the question with stuff like this.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a Hallow Heart build. I will personally be experimenting with these guys because I think just the cost is so low and the upside is so great. But again, if you ask me what I would bring to a tournament, it would just be a human castle build.
It's just more reliable, right?
Yep, but I do have, again, these guys math out well. They don't need a lot of support, and they need a movement buff they need the +3 move order, and they need one spell of the 2 spells to go off.
Yeah, if they get both, it's just great.
It's great. They blend real good.
Yeah,
so to keep an eye on Corsairs, these guys are the other half of the Blackguard equation. If you have one is the anvil, these guys are the blender. Very, very decent unit, to say the least.
Yep.
Speaking of unit that's not decent,
that's Scourge Runner Chariots.
Scourge Runner Chariot.
Yeah.
This is a worse gyrocopter. It can benefit from the Fleet Masters. You can actually get an extra attack on the Ravager harpoons.
It's not just melee weapons?
No, it's any weapon.
Yeah, you're right about that. Cool.
But that does not push their damage into good territory. And these have the same. This is a dual build from the Drake Spawn kit, so it has the same problem of being a huge base. You either have to take them in squads of 1 or squads of 3.
Mm-hmm.
You would take them in squads of 3 to maximize your value from the Fleet Master's command ability, but then you're spending your reinforcement slots on a unit that shoots quite badly. Yeah. So don't really love these.
But Charybdis could see
I love this guy. This guy's sick.
Yeah.
This guy is secretly sick. What to say about the Charybdis? He is a horror gas that is also a 12 wound monster body. That is also an elf keyword.
And also stops rally, not just inspiring presence, but rally as well, which is.
And it's within 12, not within 3, just within 12.
And not wholly within, just within. So easy to use, has roar. If your opponent shoots it, you're like, cool, thank you. You did me a favor. You didn't shoot anything else. Good.
I think this guy's good. I think even if, like, let's talk about a hypothetical 1-drop castle build with 50 to 60 Fusiliers, right? Mm-hmm. This guy is a very legitimate consideration to include in your Battle Regiment Behemoth slot, because what he's giving you is synergistic with what the Fusiliers are doing.
Yep.
You have another route. It's another way for the shooting to cause damage.
This army doesn't want to spend spells on Geminids or Inspire or Horrorghast, so this guy fits in really well.
Correct. And this guy just makes your shooting do more damage. So, that's what if you can't pass Battle that's just that means you're killing more models, right? Mm-hmm. He's a thing that's going to go forward anyway because he has to be within 12. So he's a 5. He counts as 5 on objectives. You don't care if he dies because this guy costs 160.
Yeah, so cheap.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
Charybdis is very good. I'm very surprised to say that so much of the Black Ark Corsair line is playable. The Scourge is a miss, but these 3 Warscrolls are actively playable.
Yeah, and what I like is that the Charybdis doesn't need any of the other stuff. You can just bring him independently.
Yeah,
he's just in there.
He just works. Doesn't need orders. Just a horror gas with the body. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So a lot of encouraging stuff from the elf side. Meta-wise, it'll be interesting to see how it all settles. If it's all human or if they find the balance. I think a pure dark elf list. You're probably still going to have 30 Fusiliers no matter what happens. It's just going to be in every list. You'll have the Alchemite and the Fusiliers. If you want to go 70% Dark Elves after that, honestly, the list probably has some play. Because the return fire makes up for the vulnerability to shooting the frail bodies off the board.
Yep. Strike first allows you to hit with multiple units at the same time.
You got strike first. They take buffs very well. You can do your ultimate scenario is you have one squad with Hoarfrost and one squad with Infinite Rend. You set up the fight first, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's a wrap.
it'll work. It's
a lot of encouraging stuff from elves.
Yeah, which is great. All right, are you out of time now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess. Do you want to maybe like sum up our thoughts on the book as a whole?
Exactly what I wanted to do, because I got this slide here, the very last one. I called it the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Sure.
So we can kind of just go over these points, and if you think I got anything wrong here, let me know.
Okay. Yep.
So the good, it's a high volume shooting and melee army with hit 6 mortals in addition. So they're going to pump out damage. It's going to be hard to play defensively against them if they get all their buffs up, right?
Yep.
Return fire is very, very strong. Like this is the anti-shooting army. You can't shoot this army all willy-nilly. Like this is going to really punish you if you shoot them wrong, which is a weird thing to think. Elf units with Rend Infinity can countercharge and strike first, which is hard to do, but just the potential of that shouldn't be ignored. That's a really, really strong thing that elves can do. Ironbreakers can have a 4-up ward in the enemy combat phase. You know, that's cool. It's fine. There's problems with it, but it's a good thing. It's worth mentioning.
It's a good thing. Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, the 2-up Save Ethereal Steam Tank, which can also have a 5-up ward. That's a point on its own. That's good.
Yep.
There's other good things, right? We talked about them all throughout the stream, but I think those are really the ones worth highlighting, because I feel like all the human stuff is encapsulated in those first 2 points: super high volume and return fire. Like, what else do you need to say? It's so good. The bad, there's no teleports. There's very limited reserves. They're Living City, and people are saying that's not a great subfaction. Probably won't be popular enough to see play because you need Hollow Heart, probably. So it's an honest army. It's moving in a way that's predictable. It's shooting in a way that's predictable. Like, yeah, it can add +3 with orders and plus D6 with this, but you can predict that, right? Like this army's going to have problems with line of sight because of that. It's going to have problems with objectives, because if you want to stay together as a single thing, and if you start spreading out, all the units that get out of that formation, they just get picked apart. So it's not like an immovable fortress or anything. It can be difficult to keep a hero within 3 inches of a unit in order to get the orders off, right? It's very easy to pile out of range, charge out of range, pull models out of range. Things can happen, or you can just lose the hero. If the hero's destroyed before the order's activated, it's gone, right? And I think that's going to happen a lot as people just start to learn this army.
Sure.
They're going to be overly aggressive with their heroes. Spells are going to be a big, big problem for this army. Sniping out heroes with spells is very good right now, and these guys are weak to it.
Okay, yep.
Cavaliers, they're only 10 wounds for 180 points, and they're only 1-inch range. Both of these things really suck. Despite that, they're still a great unit, but it's worth pointing out that those things suck.
It's fair.
Great cannons, inefficient and single, so they can't be reinforced, so you can't buff them properly. They can't get big unleash hells. There's inefficiencies baked into the fact that they're single, and that's disappointing.
I don't like cannons, so no contest there.
The best list might be something stupid, like just gyrocopter spam, or just pick any unit that's cost effective and bring as much of it as possible. That could end up being the best list for this army, and that would be a terrible thing for everybody involved.
Okay.
I don't know if it will be, but this book has the potential to do something like that, because anytime you pair shooting with low cost units, you will reach a critical mass where it's like, oh, well, that's the best unit in the game because I can bring 17 of it, you know? Okay, many of the new models are bad. The Foot Marshal, Talia, it's a shame that these models are bad because they're gorgeous. Human wizards can't benefit from spell enhancements. I hate that. I hate that so much.
I don't like that at all.
It's terrible, especially this season. You want spell enhancements because you want to bring like Merciless Blizzard and a lore spell. Oops, you can't take the lore spell that you want. Sorry about that. The ugly. So this army's very weak to magic and effects that disable Inspiring Presence. The Command Core definitely helps. You know, getting the 4-up Ignore on Battle Shucks is great. But magic in general is going to just tear this army apart. It's going to feel like you barely have defense against it, especially after the season is over. Right now, it's not so bad because you've got Talia with an Unbind and 2 Warforgers, and you get Primal Dice. But like once the Primal magic goes away, this army is very weak to magic. It almost does nothing to stop enemy spells. Especially anti-horde magic, that's going to really hurt. You get hit by like a Slan casting Stellar Tempest, that's 30 dice against the Fusiliers 5-up mortals, and then the Starseer does it, with 4-up mortals, and you don't have a ward through any of that because you can't unbind it. It's rough. But the ugliest part of this book is that I can't help but think every time I'm reading through this book or looking through the pages, everything except the new models is going to be replaced by the time the next book comes out.
That is scary, yes.
Yeah. All the dwarves, all the elves, some of the humans, even around like flagellants, all that stuff feels like it's just here for a short time, and it's here for a good time, not a long time, right? Fourth edition rolls around, Cities of Sigmar is going to get an updated book, and all that stuff is going to go away. That's the impression I get, and I can't commit to this army. I can't like min-max this army because buying models that won't be legal in 2 years, that I think won't be legal in 2 years, there's something about that really doesn't feel right.
That's fair. Yep, we've already been burned before. I've been burned with my now dead 3K points of Stormcast. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got my Phoenix over there. I can tell you all about how bummed I am about the Phoenix going away. So, yeah, it sucks. But overall, though, it's is it an exciting book? I don't know. I get the feeling it's a downgrade from the second edition book, right? Like there's less options, less fun list building.
It's streamlined. Like I got into cities for the sake of making crazy coalition combos, and that's dead. That the army, that's not the army anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either kind of like, you know, rue the day that everything changed, or you can kind of stay positive and go forward with the new direction. That's where my head's at. You know, no one was bigger on coalition than I was. Like I was, you know, I had every scummy Stormcast coalition unit to get the last bit of juice out of a 37% win rate book. Which it was at the end of its lifespan. It's Cruel Boys tier, right?
Yeah.
So where's the book now? Competitively?
I think it's based on our definitions, I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's S tier.
No.
It's so good at what it does in terms of being like a tough anti-shooting castle.
Yes.
It's so good at that to its own detriment because it's not good enough at anything else. Right, anti-magic is poor, mobility is poor, speed is not great. Very little flying, no teleports, no reserves. Doesn't generate too many command points. So if like you start using all that defense in multiple phases and rallies and things like that, it chugs command points a lot. There's problems. It's somewhere like if we're in a melee meta, this shoots very well into that, and it kills Croak, which is great. But it can also just get overrun. Right? People are going to build really greedy lists that have tons of shooting and like 2x5 Cavaliers, and they'll have like one screen of Steel Helms, and they'll very quickly learn that they need to start cutting out shooting to fit more screens because it's just not surviving long enough against like Iron Jaws or anything.
It's a balancing act. A lot of you have to actually play the board and play the mission, which this book can do. This book can actually do. There are tools to do that. If that means pivoting away from Halahort to go Misthaven to fix all your mobility issues and your battle tactic issues, maybe that'll end up being the pivot.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. Right now, the book is carried by a few very powerful Warscrolls, a Fusiliers. The Command Corps can actually win. I'm not totally convinced upon this, but I don't want to make a grand statement, but the Command Corps might have the single biggest impact on numerous matchups.
Yeah, it's the 4-up commanding
matchup.
Yeah.
Yes. It just ruins their day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm thinking of a lot of stuff that's popular in the meta, like I don't think Slaanesh could be a top 5 army if this exists.
No, I think Slaanesh has to pivot into Invaders. I don't think Pretenders is viable anymore. And it's not just this army, it's Geminids too. Geminids just ruin Slaanesh.
Yep.
Any shooting army ruins Slaanesh, really. They're very weak to melee. So they have to pivot into Invaders, and that's not the best pivot into some armies.
No, and then the question becomes, how does this match up into the other meta stuff?
OBR, I don't think it's got the Ren to punch through OBR. And Arcan can probably unbind your spells. So yeah, this army will struggle into sustain armies, right? Like it's got the shooting power, but if the shooting power doesn't stop the opponent from scoring points, then I don't know what it falls back on, right?
Yeah, the two matchups I'd be the most worried about. I don't know how I'd characterize Starborn yet. It really depends. Like, can you kill Croak? Is Croak going to die turn 1?
Oh
if
yeah,
he is, then that's way different.
You kill Croak and you don't die in response.
Then that's fine. Then the two matchups I'd be the most worried about are, people say it's a season of death right now. I'd be worried about OBR, and I'd be worried about the zombie spam Soul Blight lists.
Just huge recursion's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Feck would also be difficult. You have an out versus Feck though, because they are very bottlenecked around their command abilities, which you have the command squad. Yeah, I could see. Oh, I have some concerns. I could see a world where this enters the top 5, but it won't be top 3.
I'm predicting more so top 10 than
Okay.
top 5.
Okay.
And how many armies are there? Like almost 30.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds right.
probably an A tier army. S tier for us is like it's overpowered. It needs to be tuned down. A tier is like it's strong and people will play it and get great results, but it's not necessarily overpowered.
Yeah.
It's got significant weaknesses. It's got good matchups, bad matchups, things that keep it from being the top of the game. So it's somewhere, depending on the meta, it's somewhere like lower middle A tier, or maybe honestly even top of B tier, depending on just how much hate there is for this army and honestly what the errata shows. Like if Command Core doesn't get changed, it's definitely an A tier army. But if Command Core takes a hit in terms of rules, then it could slide lower. Yeah.
I think as everything stands right now, this is an easy A.
I think so.
Yeah, no worries there. I think if we're just talking about the army, like, should you play this army? Like, is this a good design for the army?
No, it's not a good design. The only people
I like orders, but I don't like that the human list writes itself, and you're paying attacks, and like you're like, wow, I really like the racial identity. Like people joke that this is like Cities of Sigmar has become racist because like you're actively incentivized to like run mono race lists.
Yeah.
To risk diluting your synergies.
Who would I recommend this army to? The only person I would recommend this army to is somebody who likes the new human models, and they should only get the new human models because the risk of everything else getting squatted is just too high right now. So if you like the new human stuff, and especially if you like playing a shooting castle, then it's a good army for you. If you're not currently into Cities of Sigmar and you want to get into the elf and dwarf stuff, don't do it. There's other elf and dwarf stuff in the game that you can pick. That's
not a wise financial decision unless you're like a Total War player and you really love playing as Lokir. You love doing that Dark Elf campaign. Come on aboard, but otherwise, yeah.
It's hard to justify it. If you have a reason, besides money and gameplay, then I can't argue with you, right? So, it's a good direction for the army going forward, I think. But man, it sucks for current Cities players. This is a disappointment. Well, it definitely sucks for Stormcast players because we don't have a cool army to fall back on. It's disappointing.
I would say I'm happy. The power level has made the bitter pill easier to swallow. Mm-hmm. If this was a B or C, like a low B or a high C tier book, I'd be like, well, fuck. Like, I just gave up. I got destroyed financially, and I lost all these models and all this time to have my army change into something else, and now it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that I do feel it is strong and can compete is helping me.
I'm worried it's going to be a mono build human castle with very little variation.
It will be for sure. Yeah. There's no question about that. For the first, that's what the builds will be. If you look at tournaments, like you go on BCP, you're going to see that. But I'm not a person who I look at everything with a critical eye. Like I don't inhale copium. The Dark Elves legitimately have good Warscrolls. And I think that does have play. Now, the good Warscrolls are all pivoting around Tenable Blades. That's an awkward part to be in. That your whole army strategy is about getting one spell off.
Yep, especially in the unbinding season.
Yep, but that being the case, like there is point for point, they are point sufficient for what they do. They do some things that the human units do not do. So if you are a Dark Elf fan or a human fan, you have some good builds. If you're a Dwarf fan, see how many gyrocopters you can find on eBay.
I wish.
Hammers, I guess. Hammers.
I might try to find some kind of proxy for gyrocopters and run a couple of them in Stormcast. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think we can end the live stream there. It's been a very productive chat, and it's been good chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to come on, we can do this again.
Sounds good. Pleasure.
Yeah. James, any final thoughts? Are you going to be building a bunch of cannons and fusiliers and just shooting everything?
No. Doing that soon.
But what about your goal of collecting every Order army?
Yeah. Cities has always been a weird one, but eventually, I guess.
Yeah. It's the last one on
James-
the list.
James
Yeah.
is going to paint my command squad for me.
Yeah, there we go.
Sweet. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Jake, for coming in. Thank you, James, for joining us. Thanks, Mergonk, for left early, but he still showed up, and that was great. Thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully we gave you some good takes, or at least some funny takes. Hopefully the typos and all the slides weren't the biggest problem in the world. So thank you everybody for tuning in.